Hey everyone, welcome to Ben 10 What If. Support the channel by liking and subscribing. Let's begin today's story.
What if Ben 10 was in Solo Leveling Universe Chapter 1, Alien Among Hunters. The smell hit Ben first, something between burnt ozone and rotting meat. Not exactly the welcome wagon he'd expected when that weird alien had dragged him through, whatever that portal was. Great, just great, Ben muttered, picking himself up off the wet asphalt. Rain pattered down around him in some kind of alley. Neon signs flashed in a language he didn't understand, but the skyscrapers looming overhead told him he was in a major city. Omnitrix, we're definitely not in Bellwood anymore. He tapped the familiar weight on his wrist, but the usually reliable alien device only sparked and flickered, its green hourglass symbol pulsing erratically. Come on, don't do this to me now. He smacked it lightly. I've got an interdimensional creep to track down. A scream pierced the night, followed by several more. Not the oh cool celebrity kind, but the something is actively trying to kill me variety. Ben knew the difference all too well. Never a dull moment. He sprinted toward the commotion, rounding the corner onto a main street where people fled in every direction. What they were running from made Ben stop dead in his tracks. A massive creature, easily 12 feet tall, was tearing through abandoned vehicles. It looked like someone had crossed a praying mantis with a gorilla, its chitinous armor gleaming under streetlights while multiple arms ripped through metal like tissue paper. Definitely not one of my regulars. Ben activated the Omnitrix, relieved when the dial popped up despite the device's unstable glow. Please give me something useful. XLR-8 would be perfect right about now. He slammed down the dial and felt the familiar rush of transformation. But something felt different. The energy flowed through him more intensely, almost burning as his body shifted. When the green flash subsided, Ben looked down at his hands, the four-armed, red-skinned form of four arms. Not what I asked for, but I'll take it. The monster hadn't noticed him yet, too busy demolishing a convenience store. Ben charged forward, leaping onto a crushed car hood for leverage before tackling the creature from behind. Hey ugly. Picking on defenseless humans is so last season. The impact sent them both crashing into a storefront, glass shattering around them. The monster screeched, a sound that drilled straight into Ben's skull, before whipping around with surprising speed, slashing at him with razor-sharp forearms. Ben caught two of the strikes with his upper arms but took a hit across the chest that sent him flying back into the street. The cut stung worse than it should have. Okay, you've got some moves, Ben grunted, pushing himself up. But I've been doing this since I was 10. He charged again, this time feinting left before driving a massive right hook into the creature's midsection. It doubled over, giving Ben the opening to clasp all four hands together and bring them down hammer style on its back. The monster crashed face first into the pavement. And stay down. Ben turned toward the civilians huddled behind vehicles. Everyone okay? You should probably. The words died in his throat as the monster rose again, its exoskeleton splitting open to reveal glowing blue veins underneath. Something was happening, it was evolving mid-fight. That's new. The monster lunged with twice its previous speed, catching even forearms off guard. Claws raked across Ben's chest, drawing blood and sending him tumbling across the road. The pain was sharper than he remembered from past fights. Everything felt more real. As Ben staggered to his feet, he noticed something strange. The Omnitrix symbol on his chest was pulsing, drawing in wisps of blue energy from the monster's wounds. Every pulse made the symbol stronger, steadier. What are you doing now? He muttered to the device, but had no time to contemplate as the monster charged again. This time Ben was ready. He planted his feet, waited until the last second, then sidestepped while grabbing one of the creature's arms. Using its momentum, he swung it in a complete arc before smashing it into the ground. The impact cracked the asphalt. The monster struggled to rise again, but Ben unleashed a flurry of punches, each landing with satisfying force. With every hit, more blue energy leaked from the creature, some dissipating into the air while tendrils of it snaked toward the Omnitrix symbol. I don't know what you are, Ben growled between punches, or what's happening with the watch, but you picked the wrong hero to mess with. With a final devastating uppercut, the monster collapsed, its blue veins dimming. To Ben's surprise, it began dissolving into particles that faded away, leaving behind only a small glowing blue crystal. The Omnitrix timed out with its familiar beep, and Ben returned to human form, just as police sirens wailed in the distance. Time to make myself scarce. He scooped up the strange crystal, pocketing it before jogging away from the scene. He made it 3 blocks before realizing he had absolutely no idea where he was or where to go. The adrenaline was wearing off, leaving him with questions he couldn't answer. The street signs were in Korean, he realized. Somehow he'd ended up halfway across the world, or possibly in another world entirely. The rain picked up, soaking through his white and black t-shirt. Ben ducked under the awning of a closed restaurant, checking the Omnitrix. It seemed more stable now, the green light steady, but when he tried to activate it, nothing happened. Recharging, huh? Take your time. Not like I'm stranded in a strange city or anything. You're either very brave or very stupid, came a voice from behind him. Ben whirled around to find a woman leaning against the wall, arms crossed. She looked to be in her early 20s, with short black hair cut in a practical bob and sharp eyes that assessed him with unconcealed suspicion. Despite the rain, she wore only a lightweight tactical jacket over a fitted black t-shirt and cargo pants. I get that a lot, Ben replied, instinctively shifting his stance to keep the Omnitrix partially hidden. Which one are you betting on? Stupid, she answered without hesitation. Only an idiot takes on a C-rank monster without backup. Her English was excellent, with just a hint of an accent. C-rank? Is that what that thing was? She pushed off the wall, moving closer with predatory grace. Playing dumb won't work with me. I saw you transform. Ben tensed. Look, I'm having a weird night. If you're looking for trouble, if I wanted trouble, I would have let the Hunter Association pick you up. She nodded toward the street where black SUVs were now streaming past. They're very interested in unregistered awakened ones, especially those with unusual abilities. Awakened ones? Hunter Association. Ben's confusion must have shown on his face because the woman's eyes narrowed. You really don't know, do you? She studied him more carefully. Where are you from? Bellwood. It's in America. Though I'm starting to think I'm very far from home. Seoul. South Korea. She watched his reaction. But that's not what I meant. Which guild? Which country's hunter program? Ben rubbed the back of his neck. Look, I know this sounds crazy, but I'm not from here. This world, dimension, whatever. Some alien pulled me through a portal, and now I'm stuck dealing with mantis gorilla monsters and talk about hunters and ranks. For a long moment, she just stared at him. Then, surprisingly, she laughed, a short, sharp sound without much humor. Great. Another dimensional incident. Because regular gates weren't enough trouble. Gates? She sighed, checking her watch before making a decision. I'm Hayan. And you're getting soaked. There's a hunter cafe around the corner where we can talk without the association breathing down our necks. You coming or not? Ben hesitated only briefly. Ben Tennyson. And yeah, I could use some answers. The cafe was dimly lit and nearly empty despite being almost midnight. The few patrons barely glanced up when they entered, too absorbed in hushed conversations over steaming mugs. Ha-Yun led Ben to a booth in the back corner, ordering 2 coffees with a quick gesture to the barista. So, Dimension Hopper, she began once they were seated, start talking. What's that device on your wrist, and how does it let you transform? Ben considered lying, but what was the point? He needed allies in this strange place. It's called the Omnitrix. Alien technology that lets me transform into different alien species. I've had it since I was a kid. Aliens. Hayan raised an eyebrow. You're claiming it's extraterrestrial, not magical. Definitely alien tech. Created by a genius named Azimuth from a planet called Galvan Prime. Their coffee arrived, and Ben gratefully wrapped his hands around the warm mug. Hayan took a sip, watching him over the rim. In our world, we don't have aliens, at least none that have made themselves known. What we do have are gates, dimensional rifts that open randomly around the world, spilling monsters that we call magic beasts into our reality. Like that thing I fought? Exactly. 10 years ago, the gates started appearing. With them came people who awakened to special abilities, hunters who could fight the magic beasts. Each hunter has a rank based on their power level, E through S, with S being the highest. Ben absorbed this information. And this hunter association monitors everything. They regulate hunter activities, oversee gate clearings, and deal with unusual cases. Her eyes flickered to the Omnitrix. Like you. Let me guess, they'd love to get their hands on this. He tapped the device. They'd dissect you to get it, she confirmed bluntly. The association's research division has been trying to understand and weaponize hunter abilities since day one. A device that grants multiple powers. They'd kill for that. Wouldn't be the first time someone's tried. Ben took a long drink of coffee. So what's your deal? You're a hunter. B rank. Not at the top, but good enough to handle most situations. And you're helping me because... Hayan leaned forward. Because you're interesting. And because something bigger is happening. Dimensional incursions outside of gates have increased in the past month. You're the third case I've encountered, but the first one conscious enough to talk. What happened to the others? The association has them. And they're not exactly forthcoming with visiting privileges. She pulled out her phone, showing Ben a news article with blurred photos of what looked like government facilities. They've set up a special containment division. Ben frowned. Great. Stuck in a strange dimension with government agencies hunting me down. Just another Tuesday. It's Thursday, Hayan replied with a straight face. It's an expression, never mind. Ben sighed, then froze as the Omnitrix suddenly pulsed green, the hourglass symbol rotating slightly before settling. Hayan's eyes locked onto the device. What was that? I'm not sure. It's been acting weird since I arrived. During the fight, it was absorbing some kind of blue energy from that monster. Her expression turned serious. Mana. The magical energy that powers our world system. She reached for his wrist, hesitating. May I? Ben reluctantly extended his arm. Hayan didn't touch the Omnitrix but held her hand over it, closing her eyes in concentration. After a moment, a faint blue glow emanated from her palm. Your device is adapting. Integrating with our world's energy system. She opened her eyes, looking troubled. I've never seen anything like it. The Omnitrix has always had a mind of its own sometimes. It's constantly evolving, updating. That could be very valuable, or very dangerous. She withdrew her hand. You should lie low while I make some inquiries. I know people outside the association who might help. Ben pocketed the strange crystal he'd taken from the monster. What about this? Hayan's eyes widened slightly. A magic core. From the beast you killed. They're valuable, hunters collect them for money and resources. So I made my first paycheck. Nice. It also means you're officially a hunter in our system now, whether you're registered or not. She took the core, examining it. The system recognizes those who defeat monsters. You probably have a status window you can access. What now? Focus your mind and think about checking your status. It should appear, like an internal window only you can see. Feeling ridiculous, Ben closed his eyes and concentrated. To his shock, a translucent blue interface materialized in his mind's eye, unregistered hunter, name, unknown level, 1 class, shapeshifter, unclassified, HP, 120/120 MP, 85/85 abilities, locked, status, dimensional displacement, adaptive equipment. Whoa, Ben muttered, opening his eyes. That's new. You saw it? Yeah. Says I'm level 1, whatever that means. Hayan nodded. Everyone starts there. You gain levels by defeating monsters and clearing gates. She checked her phone again. We should move. The cafe owner is a friend, but she can only keep the association off our backs for so long. As if on cue, 2 black SUVs rolled slowly past the front window. Back exit, Hayan said, dropping cash on the table and standing in one fluid motion. My apartment isn't far. You can crash there while we figure out your situation. Ben followed her through the kitchen and out into an alley behind the cafe. The rain had stopped, but the streets glistened under the neon lights. As they navigated the backstreets, Ben couldn't help but feel a strange excitement beneath his worry. New world, new rules, new powers at play. It wasn't his first dimensional mishap, but something felt different this time. The Omnitrix pulsed again, stronger now, as if in agreement. Hayan's apartment was small but practical, a studio with minimal furniture and maximum functionality. Weapons hung on one wall, neatly arranged by size. A desk in the corner held 3 monitors connected to a sleek laptop. Home sweet home, she said, tossing her jacket onto a hook. It's not much, but it's safe. Warded against tracking and detection spells. Magic is real here too, huh? Some hunters specialize in it. I prefer more direct approaches. She gestured to the weapon wall. Ben wandered to the window, looking out at the Seoul skyline. So how do I get home? Hayan was silent for a moment. I don't know. Dimensional travel is theoretical for most hunters. The gates are one way, monsters come through, nothing goes back. Great. Ben turned from the window. The Omnitrix has gotten me out of tighter spots before. Once it finishes whatever upgrade it's doing, maybe I can find a way. That's the spirit. She pointed to a small sofa. That pulls out into a bed. Bathrooms through that door. Get some rest. Tomorrow we need to get you registered under a false identity before the association figures out who you are. Why would they care so much about one random guy? Hayan gave him a pointed look. A guy who transforms into different creatures with different powers. In a world where power is everything, the national rank hunters would be fighting over you like wolves over meat. Are you always this cheerful? That earned a small smile. Only on my good days. As Hayan disappeared into the bathroom, Ben collapsed onto the sofa, exhaustion finally catching up to him. The Omnitrix continued its periodic pulsing, each cycle more regular than the last. Whatever it was doing, it seemed to be stabilizing. He closed his eyes, trying to process everything. Hunters. Magic beasts. Gates between dimensions. It was like stepping into a video game, except the danger was very real. His chest still stung from where the monster had clawed him. Sleep came surprisingly quickly, but his dreams were invaded by blue energy swirling around him, pulling him deeper into this new world with every breath. Ben woke to the smell of coffee and the sound of rapid typing. Sunlight streamed through the apartment window, illuminating floating dust particles. Hayan sat at her computer station, 3 screens displaying information he couldn't read from his position. Morning, Dimension Boy, she called without turning around. Coffee's on the counter. Hope you like it black because that's all I've got. Ben sat up, rubbing sleep from his eyes. What time is it? Almost noon. You slept like the dead. Fighting interdimensional monsters will do that. He stretched, wincing at the lingering soreness in his chest. When he checked the injury, he was surprised to find it already scabbed over. I'm healing faster than normal. That got Hayan's attention. She swiveled in her chair. The hunter system. Once you're recognized by it, your physical attributes start to enhance. Accelerated healing is one of the first benefits. Convenient. Ben poured himself coffee and joined her at the desk. What are you working on? Creating your new identity. She gestured to the screens filled with documents and forms. As far as the system is concerned, you're now Ben Kim, Korean-American dual citizen, recently awakened B-rank hunter who's been living abroad. Your hunter registration just happened to get lost in the system. B-rank? Thought I was level 1. Levels and ranks don't always correlate directly. Besides, registering you as E or D would attract too much attention after what you did to that C-rank beast. B is the sweet spot, strong enough to explain your abilities but not so strong that the big players take notice. Ben studied the fake documents, impressed by the detail. You've done this before. Let's just say you're not the first person I've helped stay off the association's radar. She typed a few more commands before spinning to face him. How's the fancy watch today? Ben looked down at the Omnitrix. The usual green glow had returned, and when he activated it, the familiar holographic display appeared. Back to normal, mostly. But he cycled through the alien roster and noticed something strange. There are new forms in here. Or at least, they look different. The integration I mentioned. Your device is adapting to our world's energy system. Ben selected Diamond Head, his crystalline Petrosapien form, and noticed blue energy patterns overlaid on the hologram. I should test this somewhere safe. Hayan nodded. I know a place. But first, we need to get your registration finalized. I've set up a meeting with a contact at a branch office, smaller, easier to manipulate than headquarters. And if they realize I'm not who I say I am, then we find out how fast you can really run. She smirked, shutting down her computer. Get dressed. I left some clothes that should fit you on the bathroom counter. Can't have you walking around in the same outfit you arrived in. The clothes were simple but practical, dark jeans, a navy blue t-shirt, and a light jacket with numerous pockets. Ben changed quickly, surprised at how well everything fit. These yours? He asked, emerging from the bathroom. Hayan shook her head. My brother's. He doesn't need them anymore. There was something in her tone that discouraged further questions. 30 minutes later, they were walking into a modest office building in what appeared to be a business district. Unlike the Hunter Association headquarters Ben had glimpsed from a distance, an imposing skyscraper of glass and steel, this branch office looked like any other corporate space. Remember, Hayan whispered as they approached the reception desk, you've been living abroad, just moved back to Korea, and awakened during a monster incident in the States. Keep it vague but confident. The receptionist barely looked up as Hayan explained their purpose in rapid Korean. After a brief phone call, they were directed to the third floor. The registration office was a cramped space with outdated furnishings and a bored-looking man behind a desk. He introduced himself as Mr. Park and gestured for them to sit. So, another returnee hunter, he said in English, reviewing the documents Hayan had prepared. We've been seeing more of you lately. America becoming too dangerous. Ben followed Hayan's advice, vague but confident. Let's just say I felt a calling to come back to my roots. Park nodded absently, typing information into an ancient-looking computer. Any guild affiliations overseas? Independent contractor. And your power classification? Ben glanced at Hayan, who gave a subtle nod. Transformation abilities. Different forms for different situations. That got Park's attention. He looked up from his screen. Metamorphic type. Rare. We'll need a demonstration for the classification record. Is that really necessary? Hayan interjected. His documentation from the U.S. branch should be sufficient once it arrives. Park's expression hardened slightly. Standard protocol for all registrants, especially those with unusual abilities. The testing room is available now. Ben stood, seeing no way to avoid this. Let's get it over with. The testing room was more impressive than the office, a reinforced chamber with observation windows and monitoring equipment. Park directed Ben to stand in the center while he operated controls from behind a protective barrier. Whenever you're ready, Mr. Kim. A basic demonstration will suffice. Ben activated the Omnitrix, cycling through his options before selecting one of his classics, Heat Blast. He slammed down the dial, and the familiar rush of transformation energy flowed through him. But something was different. As the pyronite form took shape, blue energy patterns interlaced with the usual orange flames of Heat Blast's body. When the transformation completed, Ben felt stronger, more connected to his fiery core than ever before. Whoa, he muttered, looking at his hands where blue-tinged flames danced between his fingers. That's new. Through the observation window, he could see Park's jaw hanging open while Hayan tried to maintain her composure. Various monitors behind them were flashing with readings. Ben created a small fireball, surprised at how easily it formed and how the blue energy seemed to stabilize the flame. He tossed it from hand to hand before extinguishing it with a thought. Sufficient demonstration. He called, the reverberating voice of Heat Blast echoing in the chamber. Park snapped his mouth shut and fumbled with the controls. Why yes. More than sufficient. You can, change back now. Ben hit the Omnitrix symbol on his chest, returning to human form. The rush of power lingered even after the transformation ended. When he rejoined Hayan and Park in the control room, the administrator was furiously typing notes. Extraordinary control, Park muttered. And the mana integration is unlike anything. He caught himself, clearing his throat. Your registration is approved, Mr. Kim. B rank classification confirmed. The system has already updated your status. Ben checked his internal status window and saw the changes. Hunter, name, Ben Kim rank, B level, 1 class, metamorph HP, 150/150 MP, 120/120 abilities, transformation, multiple forms, mana adaptation status, Hunter registration complete. That was easier than expected, Ben whispered to Hayan as Park printed their documentation. Too easy, she replied, her expression concerned. He's already made a call to someone. Park returned with an official-looking card and folder. Your Hunter ID and registration materials. Congratulations, Mr. Kim. The Korea Hunter Association welcomes you back home. His smile didn't reach his eyes. They left the building quickly, Hayan setting a brisk pace through crowded streets. We have maybe an hour before someone higher up gets curious and starts asking questions our paperwork can't answer, she said, checking her phone repeatedly. We need to get you somewhere safe to test those new abilities properly. I thought that went well, Ben protested, pocketing his new Hunter ID. Park recognized something unusual in your powers. The way the mana integrated with your transformation, it's not normal even by Hunter standards. They cut through a public park, taking a circuitous route that Ben realized was designed to detect followers. Hayan's paranoia was starting to rub off on him. So where are we going? An abandoned gate zone. After certain gates are cleared, the areas sometimes remain uninhabitable due to lingering mana contamination. Perfect for training without observation. As they walked, Ben noticed the occasional glances from passers-by, some curious, others respectful or even fearful when they spotted Hayan's Hunter badge clipped to her belt. Hunters are celebrities here, aren't they? Hayan snorted. More like necessary monsters. People need us but don't always like what we represent, a world that's changed forever, where regular humans are fundamentally weaker than awakened ones. They boarded a subway train, riding it to the outskirts of the city where the gleaming skyscrapers gave way to industrial zones and eventually abandoned districts. A massive wall came into view, surrounding several city blocks. Gangnam Gate Zone, Hayan explained as they approached a checkpoint. One of the first major gates in Seoul. Cleared 5 years ago, but the area remains quarantined due to environmental effects. The guard at the checkpoint waved them through after scanning their hunter IDs, though he gave Ben a curious look. Beyond the wall lay urban desolation, crumbling buildings overtaken by strange, luminescent vegetation that pulsed with the same blue energy Ben was becoming familiar with. Mana corruption, Hayan said, gesturing to the glowing plants. It changes everything it touches over time. Like it's changing the Omnitrix, Ben murmured. They made their way to what had once been a shopping mall. The cavernous interior was now a hollow shell, perfect for their needs. Alright, Dimension Boy, show me what you've got. Full range of abilities, no holding back. Ben grinned, activating the Omnitrix. You asked for it. Over the next hour, Ben cycled through his transformations, testing each one's capabilities and noting the changes. Every form showed signs of mana integration. Forearms was stronger and faster, XLR-8 left trails of blue energy when he ran, Diamond Head could shape his crystals with more precision and complexity. Hayan watched with clinical interest, occasionally calling out suggestions or challenges. When Ben transformed into Big Chill and generated ice that glittered with blue energy patterns, she actually applauded. The mana is enhancing your natural abilities, she observed as Ben returned to human form, breathing hard but exhilarated. It's like your device is creating hybrid forms, alien biology powered by our world's magical energy. It feels amazing, Ben admitted. Like everything's been amplified. Try accessing your hunter skills menu. If the system is recognizing your transformations as abilities, you might be able to develop them further. Ben focused, bringing up his status window and finding a new submenu labeled Skills. Inside were listings for each alien form he'd used, with progress bars and potential upgrades. This is literally like a video game now, he laughed. XLR-8 has an upgrade path for something called Mana Acceleration. Forearms has Strength Enhancement and Durability Increase. The system is quantifying your abilities and offering improvement paths. Hayan looked impressed. Most hunters have to discover these organically through training and battle. Ben was about to respond when a tremendous crash echoed through the abandoned mall. Both of them spun toward the source, the main entrance where 3 black SUVs had smashed through the remaining glass doors. Men in tactical gear poured out, weapons raised. At their center stood a tall figure in a tailored suit, a man with cold eyes and a hunter badge that seemed different from Hayan's. Director Park, Hayan hissed, stepping protectively in front of Ben. Head of Hunter Association Research Division. This is very bad. Mr. Kim, the director called, voice echoing in the cavernous space. Or should I say Mr. Tennyson? Your demonstration at registration was most impressive. I'd like to invite you to our research facilities for a more thorough evaluation. Ben activated the Omnitrix, ready for a fight. Thanks, but I'll pass on being your lab rat. Director Park smiled thinly. I'm afraid I must insist. The dimensional anomalies have become a priority concern, and your device is of particular interest. Hayan drew a short blade from beneath her jacket. You have no jurisdiction here, Director. This hunter is under my guild's protection. Guild? Ben whispered. Just go with it, she muttered back. Ah, Ms. Ha. Always finding strays to protect. Director Park adjusted his cuffs calmly. Your small independent guild barely registers with the association. Please don't complicate matters unnecessarily. He nodded to his men, who began spreading out to surround them. Ben, Hayan said quietly, I'll create an opening. When I do, transform and get out of here. Head east toward the river. I'm not leaving you to deal with this. This isn't your fight. It became my fight when they came after me. Ben stepped forward, Omnitrix ready. Director Park. I'm guessing you don't often hear the word no, but you might want to get used to it. He slammed down the dial, selecting Cannon Bolt. The transformation was instant, his body expanding into the massive armored alien form, now enhanced with glowing blue patterns across the white shell. Let me show you why I don't make a good research subject. Ben rolled into his spherical form and launched himself toward the nearest group of agents, sending them flying like bowling pins. Their weapons discharged, but the shots ricocheted off his armored hide harmlessly. Hayan seized the moment, her blade glowing blue as she unleashed a flurry of strikes against the agents approaching from the opposite side. Her movements were blindingly fast, clearly enhanced by hunter abilities Ben hadn't seen her use before. Director Park remained unervingly calm, retrieving a small device from his pocket. Impressive teamwork. But ultimately futile. He pressed a button, and a high-pitched frequency filled the air. Ben's cannonbolt form suddenly felt heavier, his movements sluggish. A mana-dampening field, Hayan shouted, her own movement slowing. It suppresses hunter abilities. The Omnitrix symbol on Ben's shell flickered erratically. He pushed through the resistance, managing to roll toward Park himself, but the director sidestepped with unexpected grace, revealing his own hunter abilities. "We've been studying dimensional energies for years, Mr. Tennyson," Park said as Ben crashed into a support column instead. "Did you think we wouldn't be prepared?" The Omnitrix timed out prematurely, forcing Ben back to human form. He stumbled to his feet, disoriented by the sudden transformation. Hayan was still fighting, though clearly hampered by the dampening field. 3 agents lay unconscious at her feet, but more were closing in. Director Park approached Ben, dampening device in one hand and what looked like specialized handcuffs in the other. "The Omnitrix, as you call it. An extraordinary piece of technology. I look forward to studying its interaction with our world's energy system." "Not gonna happen." Ben backed away, frantically trying to reactivate the Omnitrix, but it remained in recharge mode, the red dial indicating it was temporarily offline. "Struggle if you must," Park said with clinical detachment. "It will provide valuable data on the psychological profile of extradimensional entities." Before Park could reach him, a blinding flash of blue light erupted between them. The dampening field sputtered and failed as a new figure stepped through what appeared to be a tear in space itself, a man in black hunter gear with a strange dagger glowing with power. Ben recognized him immediately from news articles Hayan had shown him, Sung Jin-woo, Korea's most famous hunter. Director Park's confidence faltered visibly. "Shadow Monarch. This matter doesn't concern you." Jin-woo's expression remained impassive as shadows began pooling around his feet, forming into soldier-like entities that moved with purpose toward the Association agents. "When the Association hunts unregistered hunters in quarantine zones using restricted technology," Jin-woo said quietly, "it becomes my concern." Hayan took advantage of the distraction, breaking free from the agents and rushing to Ben's side. "We need to go. Now." "But," Ben began, gesturing toward Jin-woo. "He's not helping us. He's making a point to the Association. Political power play. We're just convenient excuses." As if confirming her assessment, Jin-woo glanced their way and jerked his head toward a side exit. His shadow soldiers engaged the Association agents, creating the opening they needed. Ben and Hayan ran, ducking through service corridors and emergency exits until they burst out into the decaying shopping district surrounding the mall. They didn't stop running until they were several blocks away, hidden in the shell of what had once been an office building. "What the hell was that?" Ben gasped, leaning against a wall to catch his breath. "Who was that guy?" "Sung Jin-woo. S-rank hunter. The most powerful in Korea, possibly the world." Hayan peered through a broken window, watching for pursuit. "He's been in conflict with the Association's research division for months. We just became pawns in their game." Ben checked the Omnitrix, still in recharge mode but recovering faster than normal. "Why would he help us?" "He didn't. He helped himself by establishing dominance over Park. But it works in our favor for now." She turned to Ben, expression serious. "They'll be hunting us actively now. My apartment isn't safe. We need a new plan. I have an idea." Ben tapped the Omnitrix. "This thing is adapting to your world, integrating with the hunter system. Maybe it can help us understand what's happening with these dimensional anomalies. You think the dimensional tiers are connected to how you got here? Has to be. That alien that dragged me through, it wasn't random. It was targeting me, or more specifically, the Omnitrix. Hayan considered this. The association's research division has been especially active lately. Unusual gate patterns, dimensional anomalies, they're keeping something big under wraps. Then we need to find out what. Ben felt the Omnitrix pulse, slowly returning to its normal green glow. I think it's time we did some research of our own. I know someone who might help. Hayan checked her phone. A former association analyst who went independent. If anyone has information about dimensional research, it's him. As night fell over the abandoned district, they made their way carefully through the ruins, avoiding association patrols that had begun sweeping the area. The glowing vegetation provided just enough light to navigate by while staying hidden in the shadows. Ben couldn't help but feel a strange sense of purpose forming. This wasn't just about getting home anymore, something bigger was happening in this world, something connected to the Omnitrix and perhaps to his arrival. And if there was one thing Ben Tennyson couldn't resist, it was a hero-sized mystery that needed solving. The Omnitrix pulsed in agreement, its glow strengthening with each step deeper into this strange new world. Chapter 2, Power recognizes power. 2 weeks into his new life as a registered Korean hunter, and Ben still couldn't read the menu at the hole-in-the-wall restaurant Hayan had dragged him to. The symbols swam before his eyes while nearby conversations in rapid-fire Korean washed over him like white noise. Just point at something, Hayan said, not looking up from her phone where she scrolled through hunter forums. It's all good here. Ben jabbed his finger at a random item. The elderly waitress nodded and disappeared into the kitchen. You realize I might have just ordered live octopus or something, right? Hayan smirked. You turned into a four-armed alien yesterday and punched through a concrete wall. Pretty sure you can handle spicy squid. Fair point. Ben leaned back in his chair, rolling his shoulders to work out the lingering soreness from yesterday's gate clearing. Any news on our research division friends? Nothing solid. They've gone quiet since the mall incident. She put her phone down, her expression turning serious. But your new nickname is spreading. Nickname? The Shapeshifter. She gestured to a table of young hunters across the restaurant who kept glancing their way. Congratulations, you're trending in hunter circles. Ben groaned. So much for keeping a low profile. Too late for that after what you did at the Gangnam Gate reopening. Footage of you taking down those ice elementals as heat blast hit every hunter forum within hours. Those civilians were in danger. What was I supposed to do, let them freeze? I'm not criticizing. Hayan's face softened slightly. It was impressive. You've got good instincts. Coming from Hayan, that was practically a standing ovation. In the 2 weeks since their escape from Director Park, she'd been Ben's guide to this world, teaching him hunter protocols, helping him understand the gate system, and training him to use his transformed abilities more effectively within the mana-rich environment. They'd been living in a safe house belonging to Hayan's mysterious guild, which turned out to be less of an official organization and more of a loose network of hunters who operated outside association control. The cramped two-bedroom apartment in Incheon wasn't luxury living, but it kept them off the radar while they investigated the dimensional anomalies. The food arrived, some kind of stir-fried meat and vegetables that smelled amazing. Ben dug in without hesitation. So what's on the agenda today? He asked between bites. More training. Another gate clearing. Something bigger. Hayan lowered her voice, leaning forward. My contact finally came through. There's a B-rank gate scheduled for clearing this afternoon in Busan. The interesting part is what they're not announcing, apparent dimensional fluctuations similar to the ones recorded when you arrived. Ben's pulse quickened. You think there's a connection? Won't know until we check it out. I got us added to the clearing team. She slid a tablet across the table, displaying their assignment details. We leave in an hour. Us and how many others? Standard team. 8 hunters including us, mix of C and B ranks. She hesitated. There's a complication. With you, there always is. The association is sending an observer. Someone from the research division. Ben frowned. Not our friend Park. No, but definitely one of his people. We'll need to be careful. Ben glanced at his wrist where the Omnitrix gleamed. Over the past 2 weeks, the device had continued integrating with this world's energy system. Each transformation now showed enhanced abilities tied to the mana flow, and Ben's Hunter status window reflected his growing power. Hunter, name, Ben Kim rank, B level, 8 class, Metamorph HP, 310/310 MP, 265 abilities, transformation, multiple forms, mana adaptation, energy absorption, developing, status, active. That energy absorption ability had appeared 3 days ago after a particularly intense gate clearing. Ben had transformed into feedback and found himself able to channel the gate's own mana through his conductors, essentially turning the dimensional tier's energy against itself. I'll be careful, he promised. But if this gate might have answers about how I got here or how to get back. I know. Hayan's usual hardened expression softened momentarily. Just don't do anything reckless. You're still learning how gates work. Says the woman who dragged me into an A-rank gate last week. That was a calculated risk. That giant lava toad nearly burned my eyebrows off. But it didn't. She smirked again, finishing her food. And now you know to dodge faster. The train to Busan was sleek and silent, racing through the countryside at speeds that made America's best rail systems look like toy trains. Ben watched the landscape blur past, still adjusting to the technological disparities between this version of Earth and his own. Some things were more advanced: hunter technology, public transportation, integration of mana into everyday devices. Others lagged behind, consequences of a world constantly under siege from dimensional invaders. Hayan sat beside him, reviewing the gate data on her tablet. The other hunters on their team were scattered throughout the car, each maintaining the professional distance that seemed standard in hunter culture. Ben had quickly learned that while hunters respected each other's abilities, true friendships were rare in a profession with such high mortality rates. Tell me more about gates, Ben said, keeping his voice low. I've been clearing them for 2 weeks, but I still don't understand where they come from. Hayan glanced around before responding. No one does, not really. The official line is that they're tiers in dimensional fabric caused by natural cosmic phenomena. But you don't buy it. 10 years ago, gates started appearing simultaneously worldwide. Nothing in nature works that way. She swiped through images on her tablet, maps showing gate distribution patterns. Some hunters believe they're manufactured, not natural. By who? Or what? That's the question, isn't it? She closed the tablet. The association controls all gate research. Independent scientists who push too hard tend to disappear. Ben frowned. And now the association is interested in dimensional travelers like me. Exactly. Which is why we need to be extra careful today. The train announcement system chimed, announcing their approach to Busan Station. As they gathered their gear, Ben noticed one of their team members watching him with barely concealed curiosity, a young hunter with dyed blue hair and a camera drone hovering over his shoulder. That's Min-ho, Hayan whispered. Hunter influencer. Posts gate clearings online for followers. Ignore him. Is that even legal? Gray area. The association doesn't like it but hasn't banned it yet. She shouldered her pack. Just don't transform anywhere near his drone. Great. Social media exists across dimensions. Some universal constants are just depressing. Busan welcomed them with sea air and organized chaos, a coastal metropolis where fishing boats shared harbor space with military vessels. Their hunter badges granted them immediate access through security checkpoints and into waiting transport vehicles emblazoned with the Hunter Association logo. The gate had appeared in an industrial zone near the port, a shimmering vertical tear in reality about 20 feet tall, surrounded by association barricades and monitoring equipment. Blue energy pulsed around its edges, occasionally shooting out small arcs of lightning-like discharges. "Unstable," murmured one of the other hunters as they approached. "Energy signatures all wrong for a standard B rank." The association representative met them at the command tent, a sharp-faced woman in a pristine lab coat over tactical gear. Her badge identified her as Dr. Yuna Kong, Research Division. "Team briefing in 5 minutes," she announced without preamble. "This gate's behavior is anomalous. Standard clearing protocols have been modified." Ben caught Hayan's eye. Anomalous was exactly what they were hoping for. The briefing was quick and clinical. Dr. Kong displayed hollow projections of the gate's energy readings, highlighting unstable flux patterns. "Your objective remains standard: clear all monsters, secure any artifacts, close the gate." However, she paused, her gaze lingering momentarily on Ben. "You are to report any unusual phenomena immediately. No exceptions." "Define unusual," Hayan challenged. "You'll know it when you see it, Hunter Ha." "Dar." Kang's tone ended further discussion. "Team enters in 15 minutes. Final equipment checks now." As the team dispersed to prepare, Ben and Hayan moved to a quiet corner of the tent. "She knows something," Ben muttered, adjusting the specialized gate-clearing gear Hayan had insisted he wear over his clothes. The reinforced armor wouldn't survive his transformations, but it provided protection while in human form. "Of course she does. The question is how much." Hayan checked her weapons, the twin short swords she favored, glowing faintly with mana enhancement. "Stay close to me in there. If we get separated, use the communicator." Ben nodded, tapping the earpiece they'd synchronized earlier. His hand moved instinctively to the Omnitrix, which had been pulsing more frequently as they approached the gate. "It's reacting to the gate energy," he noted. "Like it recognizes it somehow. Another reason to be careful. If the Omnitrix is connected to these dimensional anomalies." The team leader, a veteran B-rank hunter named Choi, called them to position. As they lined up before the shimmering gate, Ben felt the familiar pre-mission tension, the same he'd experienced countless times as a hero back home. Different world, same responsibilities. "Hunters move on my mark," Choi announced, raising his hand. 3, 2, 1, stepping through a gate felt like diving into electrified syrup, a momentary resistance followed by a tingling rush as reality shifted around you. Ben's first gate crossing 2 weeks ago had left him nauseous. Now he was prepared for the disorientation, breathing through it as Hayan had taught him. The world on the other side was nothing like Ben expected. "What the hell?" someone whispered. Instead of the monster-infested wilderness or dungeon-like environments Ben had encountered in previous gates, they stood in what appeared to be a cityscape, abandoned skyscrapers stretching toward an unnaturally purple sky, cracked roads littered with rusted vehicles, signs in a language that wasn't Korean or any Earth language Ben recognized. "Spread out, defensive formation," Choi ordered, recovering quickly. "Initial environment scan. Report all readings." The hunters moved with practiced efficiency, deploying sensors and scanning equipment. Minho's camera drone zipped upward for aerial reconnaissance, its feed displaying on the team's shared AR interface. "No immediate hostile presence detected," reported one hunter, checking a handheld scanner. "But mana concentration is off the charts." Ben felt it too, a heavy pressure in the air, like the atmosphere itself was saturated with energy. The Omnitrix pulsed rapidly now, almost in rhythm with the ambient mana waves. Hayan moved beside him, her expression tense. "This isn't a normal gate environment. This looks like a real place," Ben finished. "Not a dungeon or pocket dimension. An actual city from another world." "Impossible," Choi cut in, overhearing them. Gates always lead to dungeon spaces, never inhabited dimensions. Then what do you call this? Hayan gestured at the skyline where the skeletal remains of what might have been billboards displayed incomprehensible symbols. Before Choi could respond, Dr. Kang's voice came through their communicators. Fascinating. Proceed with standard exploration pattern but collect environmental samples at each checkpoint. Priority upgrade, this is now a research operation as well as a clearing. Ben didn't like the eagerness in her voice. The team advanced down what had once been a main thoroughfare, weapons ready despite the lack of immediate threats. The silence was unnerving, no wind, no sounds of life, just the occasional creak of metal or crunch of debris beneath their boots. This place feels dead, Ben murmured. Like whatever happened here happened long ago. Hayan nodded, her senses clearly on high alert. The mana concentration shouldn't be this high in a dead zone. Something's maintaining it. They reached what appeared to be a central plaza, a circular space surrounded by towering structures that might have been government buildings. In the center stood a monument of some kind, a twisted spire of black material that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. Hold position, Choi ordered as their sensors began registering fluctuations. Something's happening. The spire pulsed, sending a visible ripple through the mana-saturated air. The Omnitrix responded immediately, its green light flaring so brightly that Ben had to cover it with his hand. Ben, Hayan warned, moving closer to him. I'm not doing anything, he whispered back. It's reacting to. The plaza erupted in blue light as dozens of creatures materialized around the spire, humanoid figures with elongated limbs and skin that seemed to shift between solid and gaseous states. Their faces were featureless save for glowing points where eyes should be. Hostiles. Choi shouted, raising his weapon, a mana-enhanced rifle that fired concentrated energy bursts. The team reacted instantly, forming a defensive circle as the creatures surged forward. Despite their ethereal appearance, the entities moved with frightening speed and purpose. Ben activated the Omnitrix, cycling quickly through his options before selecting Diamond Head. The transformation was smooth and enhanced by the mana-rich environment, crystal body forming with intricate blue energy patterns flowing through it. Get behind me, he called to the nearest hunters, generating a crystalline barrier just as the first wave of creatures reached them. The entities slammed against the crystal wall, their forms partially passing through it before Ben reinforced the structure with additional mana-infused crystal. The blue energy patterns in his Petrosapian form flared brighter, responding to the threat. Around them, the battle erupted in full force. Hayan moved with blinding speed, her twin blades carving through the entities with surgical precision. Each strike released bursts of blue energy as the creatures dissolved. Choi and two other hunters maintained suppressive fire from a defensive position while Minho's drone recorded everything from above. These aren't standard gate monsters, Dr. Kang's voice came through their comms, tension evident despite her clinical tone. Capture one if possible for study. Little busy staying alive, Doctor, Choi responded tersely. Ben morphed his arm into a crystalline blade, slicing through three entities that had managed to partially phase through his barrier. Their touch left a cold burning sensation, even on his transformed skin. Hayan, he called. They're drawn to the Omnitrix. It was true, the creatures seemed to be concentrating their attacks around Ben, ignoring easier targets in favor of reaching him. Hayan fought her way to his position, her blades glowing intensely as she channeled more mana into them. We need to reach that spire, she shouted over the chaos. It's controlling them. Ben nodded, reforming his strategy. Cover me. He transformed his lower body into a bulldozer-like configuration of sharp crystal, charging forward toward the central monument. Hayan flanked him, her blades creating a whirlwind of defense against the entities that continued to materialize. The other hunters, seeing their plan, provided covering fire. Minho shouted something enthusiastic in Korean that Ben didn't catch but assumed was encouragement. 20 feet from the spire, Ben encountered resistance, not physical but energetic. The air itself seemed to thicken, pushing back against his advance. The omnitrix symbol on his chest flared painfully bright. Something's wrong, he grunted, straining against the invisible force. It's like it's scanning me. Hayan slashed through 2 more entities. Keep pushing. We're almost there. With a final surge of effort, Ben broke through the resistance field. The moment he did, the spire emitted a high-pitched tone that cut through the battle noise like a knife. The entities froze in place, their forms vibrating. What's happening? Choi demanded over comms. Ben reached the base of the monument, placing his crystalline palm against its surface. The material felt paradoxically hot and cold simultaneously, vibrating at a frequency that resonated with the omnitrix. I think it's some kind of technological artifact, not just a monument, he called back. And it definitely recognizes the omnitrix somehow. The spire's surface rippled beneath his touch, symbols appearing that matched nothing in this world, but that Ben recognized with a shock. Galvan script, he whispered. Like Asmatha's technology. Before he could process this revelation, the spire released a pulse of energy that knocked everyone back. The entities disappeared like smoke in wind, leaving the plaza eerily silent once more. Ben picked himself up, still in Diamond Head form. Everyone okay? The team regrouped, looking shaken but unharmed. Hayan reached Ben first, her expression a mix of concern and intense curiosity. What did you do? Nothing. It reacted to the omnitrix on its own. Ben examined the spire again, which had gone dormant. But I recognize those symbols. They're from the same species that created the omnitrix. Dr. Kang's voice cut through their comms with uncharacteristic urgency. Team, we're detecting a massive energy buildup within the gate. Extraction protocol initiated. Return immediately. Choi gestured sharply toward the path they'd taken. You heard her. Move out. As the team began retreating, Ben hesitated, staring at the spire. We can't just leave. This could have answers about how I got here. No time, Hayan grabbed his arm. Gate collapse means we'll be trapped here. Forever. The urgency in her voice convinced him. They ran back through the abandoned city streets, the purple sky above them now churning with energy disturbances. The gate entrance glowed in the distance, its stability visibly deteriorating. Hunters, report status. Dar. Kong demanded. Approaching extraction point, Choi responded. 90 seconds out. You have 60. Gate stability critical. Ben glanced at Hayan, then made a decision. Everyone grab onto me. What are you? Choi began. Just do it. Hayan backed him up, grabbing Ben's crystalline arm. The other hunters hesitated only briefly before following suit, forming a chain linked to Ben. He hit the omnitrix symbol on his chest, transforming from Diamond Head to XLR8, his kinoceleran form now enhanced with flowing blue mana patterns that traced his black and blue body. Hold tight. Ben accelerated, the world blurring around them as he pulled the entire team at speeds that would have been impossible without the mana enhancement. The abandoned city streaked past in a smear of colors, the gate entrance growing rapidly larger. They reached the threshold just as warning alarms blared through their comms. Ben plunged through, dragging the hunters with him, the familiar electric syrup sensation now painful as they pushed through the destabilizing portal. They tumbled out onto the industrial zone pavement in Busan, a tangled mess of limbs and equipment. Seconds later, the gate pulsed violently before collapsing in on itself with a thunderous crack. Ben reverted to human form, breathing hard. Around him, the hunters picked themselves up, looking dazed but alive. Association personnel rushed forward with medical kits and scanning equipment. Dr. Kong approached, her lab coat dirty but her expression alight with barely contained excitement. Extraordinary, she said, eyes fixed on Ben. Your transformation abilities exceed all parameters we'd established. Before Ben could respond, Hayan stepped between them. The team needs medical attention. Debriefing can wait. Dar. Kang's expression cooled. Of course. But I'll need detailed statements from everyone, particularly Mr. Kim. Her eyes lingered on the Omnitrix. That device's interaction with the artifact was illuminating. As she walked away to coordinate with other researchers, Ben turned to Hayan. That spire recognized the Omnitrix technology. It has to be connected to how I got here. And the association now knows it too. Hayan looked troubled. We need to be careful what we say in debriefing. Stick to facts, minimize speculation. The next few hours passed in a blur of medical checks, equipment cataloging, and preliminary interviews. Ben carefully described the events without mentioning his recognition of the Galvan script, instead focusing on the entities and the spire's reaction to proximity. When they were finally cleared to leave the site, night had fallen over Busan. The team was provided accommodation at a nearby hunter facility, a combination dormitory and operations center where they could rest before returning to Seoul. Ben found Hayan on the facility's roof terrace, staring out at the harbor lights. Couldn't sleep either, he asked, joining her at the railing. Too much to process. She didn't look at him. That wasn't a normal gate. It was a remnant of an actual civilization. One that knew about the Omnitrix, or at least the technology behind it. Ben examined the device on his wrist, which had returned to its normal, steady glow. Which should be impossible in this dimension. Unless the dimensions have crossed before. Hayan turned to face him. The association is keeping secrets about the gates. They've known more than they're telling us. Ben nodded slowly. Dr. Kong wasn't surprised enough. She expected to find something like this. The question is, what do they plan to do with this information? And with you? Before Ben could answer, his hunter communicator buzzed with an incoming message. The screen displayed an official association seal and text requesting his presence at headquarters the following day. Looks like we'll find out soon. He showed Hayan the message. They want a private debriefing with the research division director. Park. Her expression darkened. I'm coming with you. The message specifically says solo attendance. And I specifically don't care. They're not getting you alone. Ben smiled slightly. 2 weeks ago you were ready to ditch me at the first sign of trouble. 2 weeks ago you were just a dimensional anomaly. Now you're. She paused, seeming to search for words. A friend? Ben supplied. A valuable asset, she corrected, but the slight softening around her eyes told a different story. And I don't let assets walk into traps alone. The Hunter Association headquarters dominated Seoul's skyline, a gleaming tower of glass and steel rising 70 stories above the city. Unlike Ben's previous visit to the branch office, security here was rigorous. Multiple checkpoints scanned their hunter IDs, biometrics, and power signatures before they were allowed into the main lobby. Despite Hayan's insistence on accompanying him, they were separated almost immediately upon arrival. An assistant directed Ben to a private elevator while another led Hayan to a standard debriefing room. This isn't the plan, Ben protested. It'll be fine, Hayan assured him, though her expression was tight. They can't do anything to an officially registered hunter without cause. Just remember, stick to facts, minimize speculation, Ben finished. Got it. The elevator whisked him upward at dizzying speed, finally opening onto a floor that seemed dedicated entirely to research. Scientists in association uniforms moved between workstations where holodisplays showed data streams and three-dimensional models of what appeared to be gate structures. An aide led Ben through the busy space to a set of frosted glass doors emblazoned with the research division insignia. Beyond them lay a spacious office with panoramic views of Seoul and walls lined with artifacts in display cases, trophies from gate clearings, Ben assumed. Director Park rose from behind a sleek desk, his tailored suit as impeccable as Ben remembered from their confrontation at the mall. Mr. Kim, or Tennyson, if you prefer. Thank you for coming. His smile didn't reach his eyes. Please, have a seat. Ben remained standing. I prefer to keep this brief, Director. What do you want? Direct. I appreciate that. Park gestured to a holodisplay that sprang to life between them, showing footage from Minho's drone, Ben's interaction with the spire. What you experienced yesterday was extraordinary. A connection between your device and an artifact from a dead civilization. Just doing my job as a hunter, Ben replied neutrally. Clearing the gate. Oh, I think we both know it was much more than that. Park circled the desk, studying Ben with clinical interest. Your device, the Omnitrix, correct, recognized that technology. And more importantly, it recognized you. Ben tensed. What are you talking about? Park tapped a control, and the footage shifted to a magnified view of the spire's surface during Ben's contact with it. The symbols were clearly visible, along with a sequence that hadn't been there before, a pattern that matched the Omnitrix's hourglass symbol. Our linguists can't decode these symbols, but pattern recognition suggests they represent a form of identification. A key, if you will. Park's voice took on an almost reverent quality. The gates have been opening for 10 years, Mr. Tennyson. But they've been searching for something specific all this time. A chill ran down Ben's spine. And you think that something is the Omnitrix? Or its wielder? Park smiled again, more genuinely this time. You're not the first dimensional traveler we've encountered, though certainly the most coherent. Others arrived damaged, their minds fractured by the journey. Ben remembered what Hayan had said about previous dimensional travelers in association custody. What did you do with them? Studied them. Helped them, when possible. Park waved the question away. But you arrived intact, with abilities beyond anything we've seen. And now we know why. You were expected. The implication hung in the air between them. Ben fought to keep his expression neutral. What exactly are you suggesting, Director? A partnership. Park returned to his desk, retrieving a data pad. The association has been researching dimensional travel for years. We've made progress, but with your help, with access to your device's technology, we could accelerate that research exponentially. To what end? To get you home, of course. Park's tone was reasonable, persuasive. Isn't that what you want? To return to your own dimension. We can help each other. It was tempting, the first concrete offer of assistance since Ben's arrival. But something in Park's too eager expression set off warning bells. And all you want is to study the Omnitrix? Under controlled conditions. Non-invasive analysis only. Park handed Ben the data pad, displaying a formal agreement. We would register you as a special research consultant with full hunter benefits, private accommodation, substantial compensation. Ben scanned the document, noting the extensive rights he would be granting the association to study and replicate technology related to dimensional transit. I need time to consider this. Of course. Park nodded understandingly. But I should mention, the association's generosity comes with an expiration date. Other parties are interested in your abilities, Mr. Tennyson. Parties with fewer ethical constraints than us. The threat was thinly veiled but unmistakable. 24 hours, Ben replied, keeping his voice steady. I'll have an answer for you then. Excellent. Park extended his hand. I look forward to a productive partnership. Ben shook it briefly before being escorted back to the elevator. His mind raced with implications and suspicions. Park was hiding something, offering too much while revealing too little. He found Hayan waiting in the lobby, her expression darkening when she saw his face. What happened? Not here, Ben muttered, gesturing subtly toward the security cameras. They exited the building in silence, walking several blocks before ducking into a small park where the noise of a fountain would mask their conversation. They know about the Omnitrix, Ben explained, showing her the data pad. Park thinks it's connected to the gates somehow, that the dimensional tiers have been searching for it. Hayan scanned the agreement, her frown deepening. This isn't a research partnership. It's ownership rights. They want to weaponize your device. That's what I figured. But he's offering a way home. Is he? She looked up sharply. Or is he offering the possibility of research that might eventually lead to a theoretical method of dimensional travel? There are no guarantees here, Ben. Ben took back the pad, staring at the association logo emblazoned across the top. 24 hours to decide. After that, he implied other parties would come after me. A classic association tactic. Create a threat, then offer protection from it. Hayan sat on a bench, thinking. We need more information before you decide anything. Specifically, what they know about dimensional travelers that they're not telling you. Any ideas how to get that? Her smile was razor-sharp. As it happens, yes. Remember that former association analyst I mentioned? He's been monitoring their secure servers for weeks. If anyone can access their classified research, it's him. Sounds like our next stop. They made their way across the city, taking a circuitous route to avoid potential surveillance. Hayan's contact operated from a converted warehouse in a semi-industrial district, a space that looked abandoned from the outside but housed sophisticated equipment within. Lee Young-hoon was not what Ben expected, a cheerful man in his 50s with round glasses and a professor's demeanor, surrounded by screens and servers in a space that smelled of instant noodles and electronics. The famous shapeshifter, he greeted Ben enthusiastically, pumping his hand. Your gate clearings are impressive. That speed transformation yesterday, magnificent. You've been watching? Ben asked, surprised. Everyone has been watching. Young-hoon gestured to a wall of feeds showing hunter forums and news sites where Ben's exploits were featured prominently. You're quite the sensation. A mysterious B-rank with abilities no one has seen before. Hayan cut to the chase. We need information, Professor. Association research on dimensional travelers. High security clearance. Always business with you, Hayan. Young-hoon sighed dramatically but turned to his main workstation. Fortunately, I breached their new security protocols last week. What specifically are you looking for? Project Pathfinder, Ben said, remembering the code name from Park's data pad. Anything related to dimensional research or travelers from other realities. Young-hoon's fingers flew across multiple keyboards, screens flickering with data streams and security bypasses. Pathfinder. Yes, highly classified. Level 10 clearance, director-only access. He whistled low. This will take some finesse. For 20 minutes they waited as Young-hoon worked his digital magic, muttering occasionally to himself in Korean. Finally, he sat back with a satisfied expression. Got it. Downloading now. He spun in his chair to face them. But I should warn you, from the file structure alone, this is extensive. Years of research, hundreds of test subjects. Hundreds. Ben echoed, stomach sinking. Park mentioned others had come through but implied it was rare. Apparently not. Young-hoon gestured to a screen where data was assembling into readable form. According to these timestamps, dimensional incursions began before the gates officially appeared. The association has been studying them for almost 12 years. Hayan leaned forward, scanning the information. They knew. They knew about dimensional travel before the first gates. Not just knew, Young-hoon corrected, highlighting a section. According to this, they were actively experimenting with it. Project Pathfinder wasn't created to study natural phenomena, it was designed to create controlled dimensional tiers. The implications hit Ben like a physical blow. Are you saying the association caused the gates? Not conclusively. But the timing suggests at minimum they were meddling with forces they didn't understand. Young-hoon brought up another document, a research brief with security classifications so high the page was bordered in red. And they were specifically searching for something. A dimensional keystone that could stabilize controlled travel between realities. Hayan met Ben's eyes. The Omnitrix. Or something like it. Young-hoon continued scrolling through data. They've captured 17-dimensional travelers with intact consciousness in the past decade. All were studied, their abilities catalogued, their knowledge extracted. None were ever released or returned home. What happened to them? Ben asked, though he suspected the answer. Young-hoon's expression turned grim. According to these records, most suffered catastrophic cellular degradation during extraction procedures. In layman's terms, they were dissected, Hayan finished flatly. Like Park threatened would happen to Ben when we first met. Ben studied the data, a cold anger building. So Park's offer to help me get home is almost certainly a lie, Young-hoon confirmed. Based on these research parameters, they want to extract the Omnitrix and study how it interfaces with dimensional energy. The fact that it's apparently bonded to your DNA would be problematic for you. I need to see the test subjects. Ben pointed to a section labeled Specimen Containment. Where are they keeping them? Young-hoon navigated to a facility schematic. Sublevel 15 of Association Headquarters. Maximum security, biometric access only. Can you get us in? Ben, Hayan warned, breaking into Association Headquarters is suicide. I'm not leaving those people there. Ben's voice was firm. I've spent my entire life stopping exactly this kind of thing, powerful organizations experimenting on those they see as other. I'm not going to become another test subject, and I'm not abandoning the others. Young-hoon looked between them, then sighed. I can't get you physical access, but... He typed rapidly, bringing up security protocols. I can create a diversion. Tomorrow night, the power grid for the research levels will experience a maintenance failure lasting approximately 20 minutes. Emergency systems will engage, but security will revert to mechanical locks rather than biometrics. That's our window, Ben said, determination hardening. 20 minutes to get in, free whoever we can, and get out. Hayan shook her head but didn't argue. We'll need help. This is beyond a two-person operation. I might know someone, Ben said slowly, a plan forming. But you're not going to like it. The high-end restaurant in Gangnam wasn't Hayan's usual scene, judging by her discomfort in the simple black dress they'd purchased for the occasion. Ben felt equally out of place in borrowed formal wear, but their target had expensive tastes. This is a terrible idea, Hayan muttered for the 10th time, sipping water while scanning the restaurant. He has no reason to help us. He intervened at the mall for a reason, Ben countered. And from what I've gathered, he's no friend of the association's research division either. Political opposition doesn't mean he'll risk his reputation helping dimensional fugitives break into a secure facility. Before Ben could respond, the restaurant's atmosphere shifted subtly. Conversations hushed as a man entered, accompanied by two others who moved with the unmistakable grace of high-ranked hunters. Despite his unassuming appearance, simple black clothes, no visible weapons, everyone recognized Korea's most powerful S-rank hunter. Sung Jin-woo moved through the space with quiet authority, nodding occasionally to those who greeted him. His eyes, however, found Ben immediately, sharp and assessing. He knew we'd be here, Hayan realized. This isn't a coincidence. Good. Saves us the trouble of approaching him. Ben stood as Jin-woo reached their table. Mr. Kim. Jin-woo's English was precise, his tone neutral. Or should I call you Tennyson? Either works. Thanks for coming. Jin-woo gestured for his companions to wait elsewhere before taking a seat. Your reputation grows daily. The shapeshifter who tames gates with multiple forms. Quite the sensation in hunter circles. Not by choice. Few of our paths are chosen. Jin-woo studied him with unnerving intensity. You requested this meeting. Why? Ben glanced at Hayan, who gave a slight nod. They'd agreed on honesty. Jin Woo was too perceptive for half-truths. I need your help. Ben explained the situation concisely, Park's offer, what they'd discovered about Pathfinder, and their plan to free the dimensional captives. Jin Woo listened without interruption, his expression revealing nothing. When Ben finished, the S-rank hunter was silent for a long moment. The association has been experimenting with dimensional energy since before the gates, he finally said, confirming their findings. I've suspected as much for years, but lacked proof. Now you have it, Hayan interjected. Will you help us? Breaking into association headquarters would trigger a national incident. Possibly an international one. Jin Woo's gaze shifted to the Omnitrix. That device. It truly allows you to transform into different beings. Ben nodded. Alien species from my dimension. Over 10,000 genetic samples. Show me. Here. Now. A small demonstration. Jin Woo's tone made it clear this wasn't a request. Ben glanced around the crowded restaurant. Not exactly private. I've ensured privacy. Jin Woo made a subtle gesture, and Ben noticed shadows deepening around their table, obscuring them from other diners' view. That's convenient. Ben activated the Omnitrix, cycling through options before selecting one of his smaller forms. He pressed the dial down, transforming into gray matter, the diminutive Galvan form now enhanced with blue mana patterns tracing his gray skin. Fascinating, Jin Woo commented as Ben stood on the table, barely 8 inches tall. Full genetic restructuring, yet your consciousness remains intact. The Omnitrix preserves the user's identity while granting the abilities of the selected species, Ben explained in gray matter's high-pitched voice. In this form, my intelligence increases exponentially. And the blue energy patterns? Mana integration. The Omnitrix is adapting to this world's energy system. Ben transformed back to human form with a flash of green light. Each form has been enhanced by it. Jin Woo considered this information. The association wants this technology. They believe it could stabilize controlled dimensional travel. That's their claim. But based on what happened to the other dimensional travelers, they would extract it regardless of the cost to you. Jin Woo nodded. Director Park has always valued research above ethics. Hayan leaned forward. So you'll help us? I will not participate directly, Jin Woo said after a moment. My position requires certain political considerations. Ben's hope faltered, but Jin Woo continued. However, I can ensure that security on sub-level 15 is minimized tomorrow night. My guild has surveillance access to association headquarters through legitimate channels. We will be conducting a system test coinciding with your power disruption. That would give us more time, Ben said, hope rekindling. 30 minutes instead of 20. Beyond that, I cannot intervene without compromising my position. Jin Woo stood, adjusting his cuffs. I would also suggest you prepare for resistance. The specimens you seek to free may not be in condition to assist their own escape. The clinical terminology made Ben's jaw tighten. They're people, not specimens. To you and me, perhaps. To the association, they are assets. Jin Woo's expression softened marginally. Your compassion is admirable, Tennyson. But in this world, power recognizes power. The association pursues your device because they fear what they cannot control. Is that why you're helping us? Power recognizing power. A ghost of a smile touched Jin Woo's lips. Let's say I recognize something beyond power in your actions. Something this world too often lacks. He turned to leave, then paused. One last thing. Director Park is not working alone. His research has powerful backers outside the association, entities with interests in dimensional barriers. What kind of entities? Hayan asked. The kind that should remain beyond gates, not influencing those who guard them. With that cryptic statement, Jin Woo departed, his shadows dissipating as he rejoined his companions. Ben and Hayan exchanged looks. "Well, that was both helpful and completely mysterious," Ben remarked. "That's Jinwoo's specialty." Hayan released a breath she seemed to have been holding. "But we got what we needed. Support for tomorrow night. And a warning." Ben stared at the empty seat where Jinwoo had been. "Whatever Park is involved with goes beyond the association. One problem at a time." Hayan checked her watch. "We have 24 hours to plan a break-in to the most secure facility in Korea." "Just another Tuesday," Ben grinned. "It's Friday," Hayan replied with a straight face. "Still not getting that expression, are you?" The next day passed in meticulous planning. Young-hoon provided detailed schematics of association headquarters, including ventilation systems, security protocols, and patrol schedules. Hayan arranged extraction routes and safe houses. Ben studied the layout of sublevel 15, memorizing the quickest path to the containment cells. By nightfall, they were as ready as they could be. "Your response to Park's offer is due in 1 hour," Hayan noted as they prepared in Young-hoon's warehouse. "He'll know something's wrong when you don't show up or communicate. Let him wonder." Ben checked the Omnitrix, which had been fully charged and stable all day. "Once we free the others, his leverage is gone. And create an international incident in the process." She adjusted her tactical gear, lightweight body armor beneath civilian clothes, weapons concealed but accessible. No pressure. Ben had opted for minimal equipment, relying instead on the Omnitrix. The plan centered around his transformation abilities: Ghost Freak to infiltrate undetected, Big Chill for extraction, XLR-8 for rapid movement through the building. "Young-hoon's ready," Ben noted, checking the secure communicator. "Power disruption in 30 minutes. Hayan nodded, her expression turning serious. "Ben, if this goes wrong, it won't. But if it does." She held his gaze. "The association won't kill you, you're too valuable. But they'll make you wish they had. If capture is imminent, you need to prioritize escape, even if it means leaving others behind. Including me." "That's not happening," Ben said firmly. "No one gets left behind. That's how I operate. This isn't your world. Our rules are different. Maybe they shouldn't be." He stepped closer, surprising both of them by taking her hand. "We go in together, we come out together. All of us." The moment stretched between them, something unspoken passing in the shared look. Hayan squeezed his hand briefly before releasing it. "Let's move out," she said, voice professional once more. "We need to be in position when the power drops." They made their way to the association tower via separate routes, communicating through earpieces Young-hoon had modified to operate on frequencies outside standard monitoring. The night was clear and cool, Seoul's skyline glittering around them as they approached the looming headquarters. Ben positioned himself near a maintenance entrance on the building's north side, an inconspicuous door that would provide access to service corridors leading to the research levels. Hayan took up a surveillance position across the street, monitoring guard rotations. 2 minutes to power disruption, Young-hoon's voice came through their earpieces. "Jinwoo's people have confirmed security reduction on target levels." "Ready," Ben confirmed, activating the Omnitrix. "In position," Hayan added. "Eastern Patrol just completed rotation. We have an 8-minute window on this side. Initiating in 3, 2, 1. The lights in the association tower flickered momentarily before sections of the building went dark, not a complete blackout, but enough disruption to trigger emergency systems. Alarms would be blaring inside, but the exterior remained eerily silent. "Now, Ben," Young-hoon urged. Ben transformed into Ghost Freak, his spectral ectoneurite form allowing him to phase through the maintenance door without triggering its mechanical locks. The interior corridors were bathed in the red glow of emergency lighting, creating an eerie atmosphere that suited his current form perfectly. "I'm in," he whispered, floating quickly through the service corridors. moving to rendezvous point Alpha. As planned, Hayan would enter through a ground floor access point, meeting him at a service elevator junction that would provide access to the research levels. Emergency protocols had disabled the elevators, but the shafts themselves offered direct routes downward. Ben navigated through the confusion of emergency response, passing association personnel hurrying to restore systems. No one noticed the shadowy figure moving along the ceiling, keeping to the darkest corners. He reached the rendezvous point just as Hayan emerged from a stairwell, moving with the confidence of someone who belonged there despite the emergency. "Status?" she murmured, appearing to check a wall panel while actually addressing him. "Clear path to the shaft," Ben replied, still in ghost freak form. "Ready when you are." Hayan nodded almost imperceptibly, then moved toward the service elevator doors. Using a tool Young-hoon had provided, she overrode the emergency locks, forcing the doors open to reveal the dark shaft beyond. 15 floors down, she whispered. "Clock's ticking." Ben reverted to human form briefly before transforming into Big Chill, his necrophrygian form now traced with intricate blue mana patterns along the wings and chest. "Hold on," he instructed, wrapping his arms around Hayan. She gripped him tightly as he launched them into the shaft, wings spreading to control their descent. They dropped rapidly through the darkness, passing floor after floor until reaching sublevel 15. Ben phased them through the closed elevator doors, emerging into a clinically white corridor illuminated by emergency lighting. 22 minutes remaining, Hayan noted, checking her watch. "Containment section should be east." Ben nodded, transforming once more into Ghost Freak to scout ahead. The research level was surprisingly empty, Jean Wu's influence, he assumed, having redirected security to other concerns. The containment area was protected by a reinforced door with both electronic and mechanical locks. Under normal circumstances, it would be nearly impenetrable, but the power disruption had triggered fail-safe protocols, reverting security to basic systems. "Clear," Ben called softly after checking beyond the door. "But we'll need to breach the locks." Hayan joined him, examining the security panel. "Mechanical override possible but will take time. Or we could try this." Ben transformed into Upgrade, his galvanic mechamorph form merging with the security system. The blue mana patterns flowed through his liquid metal body as he interfaced with the lock mechanism, forcing it to respond to his commands. With a series of clicks, the door unlocked. Ben separated from the panel, returning to human form. "Show off," Hayan muttered, but with a hint of admiration. Beyond the door lay what could only be described as a prison disguised as a medical facility. Transparent containment cells lined both sides of a central corridor, each occupied by a single figure. Monitoring equipment surrounded each cell, displays showing vital signs and data streams. 17, Ben counted, horror and anger rising as he took in the scene. Just like Young-hoon said. The captives varied wildly in appearance, some looked human, others decidedly not. All wore identical white garments marked with identification numbers. Most seemed listless or unresponsive, though a few turned to watch their approach with dull curiosity. "They're sedated," Hayan observed, checking a central monitoring station. "Continuous chemical suppression to prevent power manifestation. How do we free them? We can't carry 17 people out of here." Hayan studied the control systems. "Each cell has independent life support and security. We need to disable the sedation first, then open the cells individually." Ben transformed into gray matter again, his enhanced intelligence better suited for the complex systems. He quickly analyzed the control panel. "The system uses a cascading lockout protocol," he explained, tiny fingers moving across the interface. "But if I reroute the emergency override through the maintenance subroutines?" The monitoring screens flickered, then displayed new information as the sedation systems began shutting down. "Well done," Hayan said. "How long until they're coherent?" "Variables include metabolism, duration of captivity, and individual physiology," gray matter replied. But estimates suggest between 5 and 15 minutes for most subjects. We don't have 15 minutes. Then we'll have to speed things up. Ben transformed again, this time into clockwork. The Chronosapien form's time manipulation abilities, enhanced by mana integration, allowed him to create a localized field where time flowed differently. Accelerating their metabolic processes to flush the sedatives faster, he explained, the key-like mechanism in his head spinning as blue energy flowed outward. It's working. Throughout the containment area, captives began stirring more actively. Some sat up, others stood shakily. A few pressed against the transparent barriers of their cells, expressions showing confusion or hope or fear. 17 minutes remaining, Hayan warned, watching the doors nervously. Ben returned to human form, approaching the nearest cell. Inside was a woman who appeared mostly human except for iridescent patterns on her skin that shifted like oil on water. "We're here to help you escape," Ben said clearly. "All of you. Can you understand me?" The woman nodded slowly, eyes focusing with effort. "Why yes." "Who?" "I'm Ben. I'm like you, from another dimension. We're getting you out of here." A commotion from another cell drew their attention. A tall, insectoid being was now fully alert, chittering in what seemed like agitation or excitement. "It recognizes you," Hayan realized, watching the creature point repeatedly at the Omnitrix. Ben approached cautiously. The being's exoskeleton resembled the mantis-like monster he'd fought on his first day in this world, but with clear signs of intelligence in its compound eyes. "You know the Omnitrix?" he asked. The creature chittered again, tapping the transparent barrier rhythmically. Ben recognized it as a pattern, a code or language. "I can't understand you," he admitted. "But I'm going to get you out. All of you." He returned to the control panel, working quickly to override the individual cell locks. One by one, the transparent barriers retracted into the ceiling, allowing the captives to emerge cautiously. The insectoid being was the first to approach Ben, movements deliberate and non-threatening despite its intimidating appearance. It extended a mantis-like forearm, revealing a pattern etched into its exoskeleton, a symbol that resembled the Omnitrix's hourglass. "It's connected to your device somehow," Hayan observed. Before Ben could respond, alarms blared throughout the facility, different from the emergency systems, more urgent. "Containment breach detected," an automated voice announced. "Security protocols activated. Lockdown imminent." "We've been made," Hayan drew her weapons. "Young-hoon, status?" "They've isolated the systems on your level," his panicked voice came through their earpieces. "Overriding my access. You have maybe 3 minutes before security forces arrive." Ben turned to the freed captives, some of whom were still unsteady on their feet. "We need to move now. Follow us." The insectoid being chittered to the others, seeming to translate or direct them. To Ben's surprise, they responded, organizing themselves with unexpected efficiency. "They've been planning this," Hayan realized. "Or at least thinking about it. Good. Let's go." Ben transformed into 4 arms, the extra limbs useful for supporting those still weakened by sedatives. They moved as quickly as the group could manage, heading toward the elevator shaft. Behind them, the sound of boots and shouted orders grew louder, security forces converging on their position. "The shaft is our only way out," Hayan said as they reached the elevator doors. "But most of them can't climb 15 floors. They won't need to." Ben hit the Omnitrix symbol, shifting from 4 arms to a form he rarely used, Gravitac. The Galilean's gravity manipulation powers, now enhanced with blue mana patterns, would be perfect for their escape. "Everyone stay close to me," he instructed as Hayan forced the elevator doors open once more. "I'm going to create a gravity bubble that will lift us up the shaft." The captives gathered around him, the insectoid being helping organize them into a tight group. Ben extended his rocky arms, concentrating on creating a reversed gravity field that enveloped them all. Slowly at first, then with increasing speed, the group began to rise up the elevator shaft, guided by Ben's careful control of the gravitational forces. Hayan kept her weapons ready, watching for threats from above. They had ascended 8 levels when the first shots rang out, security forces firing down the shaft from an open door above. Hostiles at sub-level 7. Hayan called, returning fire to provide cover. Ben adjusted his gravitational field to create a rotating shield effect, deflecting most of the incoming fire while maintaining their ascent. The mana enhancement to his Galilean powers allowed for greater precision than he'd ever managed before. Almost there, he encouraged the group as they passed sub-level 3. Stay together. A massive impact shook the shaft, nearly breaking Ben's concentration. Looking down, he saw what had caused it. A figure in powered armor had jumped into the shaft from below, pursuing them with rocket-assisted leaps. Director Park, Hayan hissed, recognizing the figure. That's Association combat gear, designed for high-rank hunter operations. He really doesn't want to lose his research subjects, Ben grunted, maintaining the gravity field despite the distraction. They reached the ground floor access point, the gravity bubble passing through the opened elevator doors into the service corridor beyond. Ben set everyone down gently before transforming into Heat Blast, turning to face the shaft. Get them to the extraction point, he told Hayan. I'll hold off Park. Ben, no arguments. They need protection more than I do. Hayan hesitated only briefly before nodding. 3 minutes, then we're gone, with or without you. She led the dimensional refugees toward their planned exit route while Ben faced the elevator shaft, hands blazing with blue-enhanced flames. Seconds later, Park's armored form shot up through the opening, landing in a combat stance. Impressive escape attempt, Mr. Tennyson, Park's voice came through the armor's external speakers, distorted but recognizable. But ultimately futile. Seems pretty successful from where I'm standing, Ben replied, channeling heat through his palms. 17 freed test subjects heading for the exits right now. They won't get far. And neither will you. Park's armor hummed as weapon systems activated. The Omnitrix belongs in our research division. Cooperate, and you'll be treated well. Resist. He left the threat hanging. You know, for a smart guy, you really don't learn. Ben launched a stream of fire that enveloped Park's armor, the blue-enhanced flames burning hotter than standard heat blast capabilities. I don't cooperate with people who experiment on others. Park emerged from the flames unscathed, his armor apparently heat-resistant. Your abilities are remarkable, but predictable. We've been studying your transformations for weeks. He fired a series of energy pulses that forced Ben to dodge. One caught him in the shoulder, sending him spinning into a wall. Each form has strengths, but also weaknesses. Park advanced methodically. This facility is equipped to counter all of them. Ben pushed himself up, the Omnitrix symbol on his chest pulsing erratically. Maybe you've studied my standard forms. But have you seen this one? He hit the Omnitrix symbol, transforming into an alien he rarely used, Goop. The polymorph's amorphous form immediately began integrating the ambient mana, its usual green color shifting to incorporate glowing blue patterns. Interesting choice, Park commented, firing another energy pulse that simply passed through Ben's liquid form. Ben flowed across the floor with enhanced speed, surrounding Park's armored boots before rapidly hardening and expanding, immobilizing him. The thing about studying an enemy, Ben said as his head reformed, is you never know what surprises they might have. He extended pseudopods up the armor, seeking access points in the joints and seams. Finding them, he flowed inside, his acidic composition enhanced by mana beginning to corrode internal components. Park's armor sparked and jerked as systems failed. What are you doing? Stop. Just giving you a taste of what it feels like to be helpless while someone else decides your fate. Ben continued disrupting the armor's functions, careful to avoid injuring Park himself. Not pleasant, is it? The armor finally locked up completely, toppling backward with Park trapped inside. Ben extracted himself and reformed his humanoid shape, standing over the immobilized director. "The difference between us," Ben said, transforming back to human form, "is that I won't experiment on you, no matter how much you might deserve it." Park's faceplate retracted, revealing his furious expression. "You have no idea what forces you're interfering with, Tennyson. The dimensional barriers are weakening. Without our research, without the Omnitrix, we have no defense against what's coming." "What's coming?" Ben demanded. "What do you know about the dimensional tiers?" "They're not random. They're targeted, a systematic breakdown of barriers between realities." Park's voice held genuine fear beneath the anger. "The monarchs are coming, and your device is the key to stopping them." Before Ben could press further, an explosion rocked the building, their extraction diversion, right on schedule. "This conversation isn't over," Ben promised, turning to follow the escape route. "It will be when the monarchs arrive." Park called after him. "They want what you possess. They sent you here." Ben hesitated, those words striking a chord with his own suspicions, but the sound of approaching security forces made the decision for him. He transformed into XLR-8 and raced through the corridors, catching up to Hayan and the refugees at the emergency exit. "Cutting it close," she remarked as he skidded to a stop beside her. "Had a interesting chat with Park." Ben surveyed the group of dimensional refugees, noting that all 17 had made it. "Everyone okay?" The insectoid being chittered what seemed like affirmation. "They're as well as can be expected," Hayan confirmed. "Transportation is waiting 2 blocks east. We need to move." They led the group through the confusion of emergency vehicles responding to their diversion, a controlled explosion at a nearby construction site that had drawn most of the security response away from their actual escape route. Young-hoon waited with 2 unmarked vans, eyes widening at the diverse group of dimensional refugees. "Oh my! This is quite a success," he managed, helping the weakest into the vehicles. Ben approached the insectoid being before it entered the van. "You recognize the Omnitrix." "Why?" The creature studied him intently before raising its arm again, tapping a pattern against its exoskeleton. When Ben didn't understand, it tried another approach, scratching symbols into the ground with its claw. Hayan knelt to examine them. "It looks like coordinates or a map of some kind." The being chittered in apparent frustration before finally reaching out to touch the Omnitrix directly. The device responded immediately, the dial rotating and glowing brightly. A holographic interface appeared, different from the usual alien selection display. Instead, it showed what appeared to be a star map or dimensional coordinate system. "It's trying to show us something," Ben realized. "A location." The being chittered excitedly, pointing at specific points in the hologram before gesturing urgently toward the sky. "I think it's saying that's its home," Hayan suggested. "Or maybe where it wants to go. Or where we all need to go," Ben said slowly, remembering Park's words. "He said something about monarchs coming through the dimensional barriers. That they sent me here." The insectoid being reacted strongly to the word monarchs, its chittering becoming agitated. "We need to get them somewhere safe first," Hayan said, glancing nervously at the association tower where alarms continued to blare. "Then figure out what all this means." Ben nodded, helping the last refugees into the vans. As they pulled away, he couldn't shake the feeling that their successful prison break was just the beginning of something much larger. Park's warnings, the insectoid's recognition of the Omnitrix, the strange star map, all pieces of a puzzle he was only beginning to see. The safe house Young-hoon had arranged was a decommissioned research facility in the mountains north of Seoul, a sprawling compound once used for hunter training before budget cuts had shuttered it. Isolated and self-sufficient with its own power and water systems, it was perfect for housing 17-dimensional refugees away from prying eyes. By dawn, they had everyone settled in temporary quarters, medical needs addressed, and a security perimeter established. Most of the refugees were resting, the ordeal of captivity and escape having exhausted them. Ben found Hayan on the facility's observation deck, watching the sunrise over the mountains. "You should rest," she said without turning. "Using that many transformations in succession must be draining." "I'm good." Ben joined her at the railing. "The Omnitrix recharges faster here than back home. Something about the ambient mana." They stood in companionable silence for a moment, the events of the night settling around them. "Park said something before I left him," Ben finally said. "About monarchs coming through dimensional barriers. That they're the ones who sent me here." Hayan's expression tightened. "The monarchs are figures from hunter mythology, godlike entities said to exist beyond the gates. Most hunters consider them symbolic, not literal. But Park seemed genuinely afraid. And our insectoid friend definitely recognized the term." "Speaking of our chittering friend," Hayan changed the subject slightly, "Younghoon's been working on a translation algorithm based on the patterns it keeps using. Primitive, but might help us communicate." "Good. I have questions only it can answer." Ben looked at the Omnitrix, which had been unusually active since the insectoid touched it. "That star map or coordinate system it showed, I think it's trying to help us. Or leading us into a trap." Hayan's natural suspicion reasserted itself. "We know nothing about these beings or their motivations." "True. But they were captives, just like I would have been if you hadn't helped me that first night." Ben turned to face her directly. "Which reminds me, I never properly thanked you for that. For taking a chance on a stranger from another dimension." Hayan seemed momentarily flustered by his directness. "It was a tactical decision. You had useful abilities." "Right. Purely practical." Ben smiled slightly. "Nothing to do with your innate desire to help those the association would exploit. Don't romanticize it, Tennyson." But there was less edge to her voice than usual. "I've made plenty of selfish choices in my life. We all have. It's what we do when it really matters that counts." Their eyes met, the moment stretching between them with unspoken possibilities. Hayan took a small step closer, something vulnerable briefly visible in her usually guarded expression. The facility's alarm system chose that moment to activate, blaring through speakers throughout the compound. "Proximity alert," Younghoon's voice came through the communication system. "Multiple vehicles approaching from the south. Association markings." The moment broken, Hayan was instantly back in tactical mode. "They found us faster than expected. We need to move the refugees." Ben activated the Omnitrix, ready for another fight. "How? We barely have transportation for ourselves, let alone 17 others." Before Hayan could answer, a new alarm sounded, different in tone and urgency. Slight complication," Younghoon announced, panic evident in his voice. "Gate opening detected. Inside the compound." "Inside?" Hayan echoed in disbelief. "That's impossible." They rushed from the observation deck to the main building where chaos had erupted. A gate had indeed formed in the central courtyard, a shimmering tear in reality about 10 feet tall, pulsing with unusual energy patterns unlike any Ben had seen before. The refugees had gathered around it, the insectoid being at the forefront, making excited gestures. "It's communicating with them," Ben realized, joining the group. "Or they summoned it somehow." Younghoon approached, tablet in hand. "This gate doesn't match any known energy signature in the association database. It's completely unique." The insectoid turned to Ben, gesturing urgently between him and the gate. "I think it wants us to go through," Hayan said, watching the interaction. "Into an unknown dimension." "That's suicide," Younghoon protested. The proximity alarms grew more insistent, association forces closing in quickly. They had minutes at most before the compound would be surrounded. The insectoid being approached Ben directly, placing one claw gently on the Omnitrix. The device responded, projecting the same coordinate map from before, then highlighting a specific point that pulsed in sync with the gate. "It's showing us the destination," Ben understood suddenly. This gate leads to wherever that map was pointing to. Ben, we can't just, Hayan began. The association is almost here, Young-hoon interrupted. Whatever you're deciding, decide quickly. The insectoid chittered urgently, gesturing toward the gate again. One by one, the other dimensional refugees approached the tear, stepping through with varying degrees of hesitation but clear purpose. They know where they're going, Ben said with growing certainty. Hayan gripped his arm. Or they're being controlled. This could be exactly what Park warned about, monarchs pulling beings through dimensions. Or it could be their only chance at freedom. Our only chance. Ben made his decision, turning to Young-hoon. Get yourself out. Take the back trails into the forest. The association won't harm you if they think you were coerced. The analyst looked between them, then nodded shakily. What about you two? Ben looked at Hayan. I'm going through. I need answers, and they're on the other side. This is insane, she muttered, but her hand moved to her weapons, checking them methodically. You'll get yourself killed without backup. Is that an offer to come with me? Someone has to keep you alive until you find a way home. Despite her words, there was a hint of excitement beneath her practical tone. Besides, I've always wanted to see another dimension. The compound's outer alarms triggered, association forces breaching the perimeter. They were out of time. The insectoid being was the last refugee remaining, waiting by the gate with what seemed like impatience. It gestured once more to Ben and Hayan, then stepped through the dimensional tear. Last chance to back out, Ben said to Hayan as they approached the swirling energy. And missed the chance to see what other aliens you can turn into? She managed a tight smile. Not a chance. Together, they stepped into the gate just as association forces burst into the courtyard behind them. The familiar sensation of dimensional transit enveloped them, but different somehow, smoother, more controlled. As reality shifted around them, Ben felt the Omnitrix pulse with recognition, as if it too were returning to something familiar. Whatever awaited them on the other side, he sensed it was tied to the device's origins, and perhaps to his purpose in this world. The gate's energy surrounded them completely, carrying them toward an unknown destination and the answers that awaited. Chapter 3, Heroes and Hunters. Stepping through a normal gate was like diving through electrified syrup. Stepping through this gate? More like being disassembled molecule by molecule while your consciousness got stretched across a cosmic rubber band. Ben landed hard on his hands and knees, lungs burning as he gulped air that tasted metallic and strange. Next to him, Hayan collapsed in a similar position, her face pale but eyes alert and scanning their surroundings. Still in one piece. Ben managed between breaths. Mostly. She pushed herself to her feet with practiced efficiency. That was different. Yeah, interdimensional travel without a proper vehicle will do that to you. Ben stood, checking the Omnitrix. It pulsed with steady green light, stronger than he'd seen since arriving in the hunter world. Where are the others? They had emerged on what appeared to be a massive platform of gleaming white material that resembled neither metal nor stone. The platform actually floated, in a vast open space where swirling nebulae and distant stars replaced a normal sky. Multiple similar platforms connected by shimmering bridges extended in all directions, forming a three-dimensional network that defied conventional architecture. The dimensional refugees who preceded them through the gate were gathered nearby, clustered around the insectoid being who seemed to be directing them with gestures and chittering sounds. I think the better question is, where are we? Hayan murmured, one hand resting on her weapon as she took in the impossible landscape. Before Ben could respond, the insectoid approached them, accompanied by two of the more humanoid refugees. The being gestured elaborately before touching a device on its forearm that activated with a soft chime. Wielder of the Omnitrix, came a translated voice from the device, stilted but understandable. Welcome to the Nexus. Safety here for now. Gratitude for rescue. You can talk. Ben exclaimed, then felt immediately foolish. I mean, you can communicate with us now. Translation matrix recovered from storage upon arrival. The insectoid gestured to its companions. All refugees thank you. Many cycles in captivity. Freedom precious. Hayan stepped forward, practical as always. What is this place? And how did you create a gate directly to it? Not create. Summon. The insectoid's compound eyes fixed on the omnitrix. The key called to the nexus. We followed signal. The key? Ben looked down at the device on his wrist. You mean the omnitrix? Yes. Universal key. Opens paths between realms. The insectoid made a gesture that might have been reverence. Created by primes to maintain balance. Primes, you mean the Galvans? Like azimuth? The translator produced a sound like static before clearing. Names translating poorly. The first builders. Yes. Hayan touched Ben's arm, her voice low. Ask about the monarchs. Park's warning. Ben nodded. The association director mentioned entities called monarchs. He said they were coming through dimensional barriers. That they sent me to your world. The reaction was immediate and dramatic. The insectoid's chitinous plates flared as it made a sound that needed no translation, alarm. The other refugees backed away, some making protective gestures. Monarchs speak forbidden here, the insectoid said after regaining composure. Watchers may hear. Rest first. Recover strength. Explanations come after safety protocols activated. It gestured toward one of the connected platforms. Temporary quarters prepared. Medical attention available for injured. Please follow. Ben and Hayan exchanged glances but fell in with the group as they moved across a bridge that seemed to generate beneath their feet as they walked. The sensation was disconcerting, like walking on solid light. I don't like this, Hayan whispered. Too many unknowns. We were out of options back there, Ben reminded her. And they did help us escape. Or they used us to escape themselves. Don't forget, we know nothing about these beings or their agenda. As they crossed to the next platform, Ben noticed intricate patterns embedded in its surface, symbols that resembled the Galvan script he'd seen on the spire in that abandoned city dimension. The Omnitrix pulsed in response to their proximity. This place is connected to the Omnitrix somehow, he murmured. It feels familiar, but I've never been here before. They were led to a structure that seemed to grow organically from the platform's surface, a dome of translucent material that shimmered with subtle energy patterns. Inside, the space had configured itself into separate areas for rest, medical treatment, and what appeared to be a central command section filled with holographic displays. The insectoid directed the other refugees to various sections before turning back to Ben and Hayan. Rest. Recover. Security protocols initializing. It gestured to two recessed areas that had formed themselves into approximations of human sleeping quarters. Will return when safe to speak freely. With that, it departed through an archway that sealed itself behind it, leaving them alone in their section of the dome. Hayan immediately began examining their surroundings, checking for surveillance or potential threats. Ben watched her methodical inspection with a mixture of admiration and amusement. I don't think there's a way to barricade alien interdimensional architecture, he commented as she tested the resilience of the walls. There's always a weakness in any security system. She pressed against various sections of the translucent material. I just need to find it. Or we could just rest like they suggested. You look like you're about to collapse. She shot him an irritated glance, but he could see the exhaustion in the slight droop of her shoulders and the tightness around her eyes. They'd been awake for nearly 36 hours straight through the planning, execution, and aftermath of the association break-in. Fine. 2-hour rotation. She finally relented. You first, then me. Deal. Ben sat on the edge of the bed-like platform, which adjusted its firmness to his body weight. But wake me if our insect friend comes back with answers. Hayan nodded, taking up position near the sealed archway where she could monitor both the entrance and Ben's resting area. Despite her vigilance, Ben noticed her eyelids growing heavy within minutes. "You know," he said casually, "the bed thing is big enough for two people to rest while still maintaining tactical awareness." She gave him a look that would have withered a lesser man. "I'm fine where I am, Tennyson. Suit yourself." He lay back, the surface conforming to his body perfectly. "But I've learned that heroes who don't rest when they can end up making mistakes when it matters." He closed his eyes, expecting sleep to claim him instantly given his exhaustion. Instead, his mind raced with questions. The insectoid's reverence for the omnitrix as a universal key. The familiar symbols throughout the nexus. Park's warnings about monarchs. It all connected somehow, but the pattern eluded him. The omnitrix pulsed gently against his wrist, almost like a heartbeat. In this place, it felt more alive than ever before, as if it had been strengthened by proximity to, whatever this place was. Just as sleep began to overtake him, Ben felt a subtle shift in weight on the platform. Hayan had silently moved to sit at the far edge, her back still straight but her posture more relaxed. "Just for 30 minutes, she said without looking at him. "Tactical necessity." Ben smiled but said nothing, drifting off with the knowledge that despite her walls, Hayan was beginning to trust him. In her world of hunters and monsters, that meant more than any verbal admission could. Ben woke to the sound of voices, Hayan's terse questions answered by the mechanical translation of their insectoid host. He sat up, noting that he'd been asleep far longer than the agreed 2 hours. The chronometer function on the Omnitrix confirmed it, nearly 8 hours had passed. "You were supposed to wake me," he accused, joining them at what had configured itself into a meeting area with seating for various body types. "You needed the rest," Hayan replied without apology. "Besides, our host only returned an hour ago." The insectoid's translator chimed as it addressed Ben. "Protocols complete. Nexus secure from observation. Now safe to speak." "Great." Ben sat beside Hayan. "Let's start with names. I'm Ben Tennyson. This is Hayan. Name's difficult concept for my species." The insectoid made a complex gesture. Translator approximates as Vex. Function, Nexus cartographer. "A cartographer? You map this place?" Hayan asked. "Map dimensions. Pathways between realms. Ancient duty of my kind." Vex's compound eyes fixed on the Omnitrix again. "Before breach. Before exile." Ben raised his wrist, letting Vex see the device more clearly. "You called this the universal key. In my world, it's called the Omnitrix, created by a Galvan named Asmith to preserve alien DNA and promote understanding between species." Vex made a sound like clicking mandibles. "Partial truth. Primary function hidden from wielder. Protection protocol." "What do you mean, hidden function?" Ben frowned. "I've had this thing for years. I know what it does. Transformation capability is secondary system. Primary purpose, dimensional stability." Vex activated a holographic display from its forearm device, showing a complex network of interconnected points. Universe exists as multiverse. Infinite dimensions touching at nexus points. Barriers maintain separation. The display shifted, showing ruptures in the network, tears that bled energy between points. Gates, Hayan realized. The tears in reality that appeared in our world. Yes. Artificial ruptures. Created by those who seek collapse of barriers. Vex translator couldn't convey emotion, but its body language conveyed distress. "The monarchs." There was that word again. Ben leaned forward. "Who or what are the monarchs?" Vex seemed to consider its response carefully. "Entities from void between dimensions. Ancient. Powerful. Consume worlds for energy. Seek to merge all realities into chaos state they can rule. And what does this have to do with the Omnitrix? Ben asked, though he was beginning to suspect the answer. Omnitrix designed as countermeasure. Contains dimensional lock codes. Can repair barriers, seal ruptures permanently. Vex translator hummed with effort as it conveyed complex concepts. Creator hid function within transformation matrix. Protection from those who would seize control. Hayan's eyes narrowed with sudden understanding. That's why the association's research division was so obsessed with capturing Ben. They weren't just studying dimensional travel, they were looking for a way to control the gates. Human organization compromised, Vex confirmed. Leader served Shadow Monarch willingly. Park, Ben growled. He's working for these monarchs. Why? Promise of power. Control of dimensional access. Typical human corruption. Vex's dismissal was matter-of-fact rather than judgmental. Unaware he is tool, not partner. The pieces were falling into place now. The association's experiments with dimensional energy before the gates officially appeared. Their capture and study of dimensional travelers. Park's desperation to secure the Omnitrix. That spire we found in the abandoned city dimension, Ben said suddenly. The one with galvan markings that reacted to the Omnitrix. What was that? Dimensional anchor. Part of original barrier network. Vex's compound eyes gleamed with something like approval. You found damaged node. Omnitrix recognized counterpart technology. Hayan stood, pacing with the restless energy of someone processing tactical implications. So the gates appearing in our world for the past 10 years, they're not natural phenomena, but deliberate attacks on these barriers? Correct. Systematic degradation. Testing defenses. Searching for key. Vex gestured to Ben. Searching for you. Ben felt a chill despite the comfortable temperature. Me specifically? Or any Omnitrix wielder? Omnitrix bonds to wielder. Becomes attuned to specific genetic signature. You were targeted after bonding complete. That explained why the alien that had dragged Ben into this dimension had focused so intently on the Omnitrix yet hadn't simply removed it, couldn't remove it, from his wrist. Wait, Hayan interrupted. You said the association leader, Park, serves the Shadow Monarch. Is that different from the others? 8 monarchs exist. Different domains, different powers. Shadow Monarch most subtle. Manipulates from distance. Vex translator crackled with static momentarily. Beast Monarch sent Hunter to capture key. Failed mission. That creature that attacked me in my world, Ben realized. It was working for these monarchs. Yes. When failed, different strategy implemented. Shadow Monarch servant, your director Park, created special gate. Pulled you through with device. Ben stood now as well, agitated. So I was kidnapped. Deliberately brought to the Hunter world. Yes and no. Vex made a complex gesture the translator didn't attempt to interpret. Extraction successful, but destination error occurred. Should have arrived in controlled facility. Instead, random emergence in city. That's why Park was so desperate to find me that first night, Ben said, remembering the association forces that had converged so quickly. I was supposed to be delivered right into his hands. If Hayan hadn't found me first. He didn't need to finish the thought. Hayan had gone quiet, her tactical mind visibly processing the implications. These monarchs. If they want to collapse the barriers between dimensions, what's their endgame for our world? Consumption, Vex answered simply. Energy harvest. Physical laws in your dimension support powerful mana generation. Desirable resource. They want to eat our world's energy, Ben translated grimly. And everybody in it. Correct assessment. Process already begun through gate system. Each gate weakens barriers further, allows more direct influence. Hayan turned to Ben, her expression deadly serious. If the Omnitrix can seal these ruptures permanently, we need to get you back to our world immediately. The association may be compromised, but there are other hunters, Jin Woo, for instance, who would help us stop this. Ben nodded, turning to Vex. Can you open another gate back to the hunter world? Possible but dangerous. Monarchs now aware of Key's activation at Nexus. Will monitor dimensional pathways. Vex's mandibles clicked anxiously. Need preparation. Protection measures. How long? 12 hours minimum. Must calibrate precise coordinates, generate sufficient energy for stable passage. Then we have 12 hours to prepare. Ben looked down at the Omnitrix. And I need to figure out how to access this hidden function. If I'm supposed to seal dimensional ruptures, I need to know how. Function activates when needed. Instinctive response to correct stimulus. Vex approached, gesturing to the device. May examine closer. Can provide activation insights. Ben hesitated only briefly before extending his arm. Vex's touch was surprisingly gentle as it examined the Omnitrix with specialized sensors built into its forelimbs. Integration with foreign energy system progressing well, it noted. Hunter system mana compatibility high with Omnitrix matrix. Beneficial mutation occurring. It's been adapting since I arrived, Ben confirmed. Each transformation is enhanced by the mana energy. Not just enhancement. Evolution. Vex sensors retracted. Omnitrix learning from new environment. Creating hybrid capabilities that will transfer across dimensions. That was new information. You mean when I go home, these new abilities will still work? Affirmative. Permanent upgrades to core system. Beneficial side effect of dimensional exposure. Hayan had moved to what appeared to be a viewing portal, looking out at the nexus beyond their shelter. As fascinating as alien technology evolution is, we need a plan. When we return, the association will be hunting us with everything they have. And the monarchs, Ben added, joining her at the portal. If they're as powerful as Vex suggests, we're looking at threats beyond anything the hunter world has faced before. One hunter might help, Hayan said thoughtfully. Jin Woo. He has his own connection to the Shadow Monarch, a power he took rather than served. He might understand this better than anyone. Ben remembered the enigmatic S-rank hunter who had intervened at the mall and later provided assistance during their association break-in. You think he already knows about the monarchs? I think very little happens in our world that Jin Woo doesn't know about, Hayan replied. Especially regarding shadows. Vex had been monitoring their conversation, its compound eyes flickering with interest. This hunter you mention, unusual energy signature detected during nexus scans of your dimension. Powerful entity. Neither human nor monarch. That's Jin Woo, Hayan confirmed. Korea's strongest hunter. Possibly the world's strongest. Potential ally against monarch incursion. Vex moved to a control interface that had formed in the center of the room. While preparing return gate, can attempt communication. Nexus allows cross-dimensional messaging under certain conditions. You can send a message to Jin Woo from here? Ben asked, surprised. Can attempt. Requires compatible receiver in target dimension. Uncertainty high. Hayan straightened, suddenly alert. The Shadow Communication System. Jin Woo can receive messages through his Shadow soldiers. If they're connected to this Shadow Monarch power, they might be able to detect signals from the Nexus. Vex chittered what might have been approval. Will attempt connection. Need focus point, personal connection to target. I fought alongside him, Hayan offered. Briefly, during an A-rank gate clearing last year. Insufficient. Vex's translator was blunt. Deeper connection required. Memory imprint with emotional resonance. Hayan frowned, clearly uncomfortable. I don't have that kind of connection with him. But maybe I do, Ben said slowly. Not with Jin Woo directly, but with this whole situation. He raised the omnitrix. This is already connected to the dimensional barriers. If Jin Woo has some relationship to the Shadow Monarch, maybe it can bridge the gap. Vex considered this possible. Key contains multidimensional resonance patterns. May serve as conduit if properly calibrated. What do I need to do? Connect to interface. Focus on target dimension, individual, message intent. Nexus system will attempt translation through dimensional barriers. The interface reconfigured itself, creating what appeared to be a contact point designed for the Omnitrix. Ben placed his wrist against it, the device immediately responding with a bright green glow that synced with the Nexus technology. Focus mind, Vex instructed. Visualize connection. Intent clear. Ben closed his eyes, concentrating on the hunter world he'd left behind. He visualized Jin Woo as he'd last seen him, the calm, powerful presence at the restaurant, speaking of political considerations while shadows gathered around him. He focused on their shared goal, protecting a world under threat from forces beyond its understanding. The Omnitrix grew warm against his skin, its pulse synchronizing with his heartbeat. In his mind, he formed the message they needed to convey: the monarchs are coming. Gates are their creation. The association is compromised. We have a way to seal the barriers permanently. Need your help. Energy flowed through the Omnitrix into the Nexus interface, creating a visible stream of green and blue light that coalesced into a concentrated beam projecting outward from their location towards some distant point in the multidimensional network surrounding them. Connection establishing, Vex reported, monitoring readings. Signal penetrating dimensional barriers. Reaching target world. Ben maintained his focus, sweat beading on his forehead from the effort of sustaining the mental projection. The Omnitrix's interface shifted, displaying alien symbols that flowed too quickly to read. Just as his concentration began to falter, a response came, not in words but in sensation. A cold presence, vast and ancient, brushed against his consciousness through the connection. It felt like standing in a shadow cast by something unfathomably large. Then, cutting through that sensation came a human presence, focused, controlled, and immensely powerful. Jin Woo had received their message. A single word formed in Ben's mind, transmitted back through the dimensional link, when Ben projected the response, 12 hours. Seoul Central Park. Bring trusted hunters only. Understanding and agreement flowed back, then the connection severed as suddenly as it had formed. Ben staggered back from the interface, the Omnitrix cooling against his skin as the energy flow ceased. You okay? Hayan steadied him with a hand on his shoulder. Yeah. Ben took a deep breath. It worked. Jin Woo received the message. He'll be waiting when we return. Vex chittered excitedly. Exceptional result. Connection strength beyond predicted parameters. Omnitrix capabilities evolving rapidly in proximity to Nexus. I felt something else too, Ben said, rubbing his wrist. Something watching from behind Jin Woo. Cold and vast. Shadow Monarch essence, Vex confirmed. Not full entity, but power fragment possessed by Hunter. Interesting development. Hayan's expression was thoughtful. Jin Woo's abilities have always been different from other hunters. If he somehow acquired powers from a monarch without being controlled by it. Potential advantage in coming conflict, Vex concluded. Preparation must accelerate. Return gate coordinates calculating now. As Vex moved to another interface to continue its work, Ben and Hayan retreated to a quieter corner of the shelter to process everything they'd learned. So, Ben summarized, interdimensional god entities called monarchs are trying to invade your world by systematically weakening the barriers between dimensions. They kidnapped me specifically because the Omnitrix can permanently seal these barriers. And the association's research director is their willing servant. Just another Tuesday. Hayan attempted his catchphrase with the ghost of a smile. Actually, I think we're up to Friday at this point, Ben replied, earning a genuine laugh that transformed Hayan's usually serious features. The moment of lightness faded quickly as reality reasserted itself. When we go back, Hayan said, it won't just be the association hunting us. If these monarchs realize what the Omnitrix can do, they'll throw everything they have at stopping us, Ben finished. I know. Been saving worlds since I was 10, you get used to the apocalyptic stakes. Hayan studied him with newfound curiosity. You mentioned that before. You've had the Omnitrix since childhood. Found it when I was camping with my grandpa and cousin. Thought it was a cool watch that fell from the sky. Ben smiled at the memory. Turned out to be the most powerful device in the universe with aliens trying to kill me for it. Really changed my summer vacation plans. And you've been fighting with it ever since. Alone? Not always alone. Had my family. Friends. A team, sometimes. A pang of homesickness hit unexpectedly. Been solo more often lately, though. College, moving around, harder to keep a team together. Hayan's usual reserve softened slightly. You miss them. Yeah. Ben looked out at the impossible landscape of the Nexus. Especially my cousin Gwen and Kevin. We were a good team. They'd probably have this whole situation figured out by now. You seem to be doing fine on your own. Hayan's compliment came with a slight nudge of her shoulder against his, an uncharacteristically casual gesture from the usually reserved hunter. For a dimension-hopping alien shapeshifter with no survival training. Hey, I've survived plenty. Just usually with the option to turn into something with super strength or flight or, fire blasts. Cheater, she teased, but there was warmth in her voice. They sat in comfortable silence for a moment, watching the swirling cosmos beyond the shelter's translucent walls. Despite the dangers waiting for them, Ben felt a strange peace here at the Nexus, as if the Omnitrix had brought him exactly where he needed to be. What will you do after? Hayan asked suddenly. If we succeed in sealing the gates permanently, will you try to find a way back to your dimension? The question caught Ben off guard. In the chaos of discovery and escape, he hadn't fully considered the long-term implications. If the Omnitrix could seal dimensional barriers, would that include his own path home? I don't know, he admitted. I've been so focused on stopping the immediate threat that I haven't really thought about, after. Hayan nodded, her expression carefully neutral. Of course. One crisis at a time. Something in her tone made Ben look at her more closely. Would it matter to you? What I decide? She maintained her composure, but Ben caught the slight tension in her jaw. You've become a valuable asset to the hunter community. Your abilities would be missed. Just my abilities? Their eyes met, and for a moment, Hayan's carefully constructed walls lowered enough for Ben to glimpse vulnerability beneath. But before she could respond, Vex approached, interrupting the moment. Return gate preparations advancing faster than projected. Energy signature stabilizing. The insectoid's translator conveyed urgency. However, complication detected. Monitoring systems indicate increased monarch activity in target dimension. Time window may be compromised. They know we're coming back, Ben concluded, standing immediately. How soon can we go? 4 hours minimum for safe transit. Rushing risks dimensional collapse. Hayan was already shifting to tactical planning. We need to warn Jinwoo about the accelerated timeline. Can we re-establish communication? Inadvisable, Vex chittered anxiously. Second transmission would create traceable energy signature. Monarchs would detect precise origin point. Then we stick with the original plan but prepare for heavier resistance, Ben decided. Vex, is there anything here at the Nexus that can help us fight when we return? Weapons, technology, information about monarch weaknesses. Limited options available. Most Nexus defense systems dormant since caretaker exodus. Vex moved toward an area of the shelter they hadn't yet explored. Some resources remain in repository. We'll show. The repository turned out to be a collection of artifacts and devices preserved from various dimensions, tools left behind by the mysterious caretakers Vex had mentioned. Most were incomprehensible in purpose, but a few had clear combat applications. Hayan examined a set of gauntlets that enhanced kinetic energy. These would complement my fighting style. Are they compatible with human physiology? Adaptive interface. Will calibrate to user. Vex helped her secure the gauntlets, which gleamed with subtle energy as they bonded to her arms. Enhanced strike force by factor of 10. Mana compatible. Ben was drawn to what appeared to be a small disc with complex circuitry visible beneath a transparent surface. What's this? Dimensional anchor. Miniaturized version. Vex carefully handed it to him. Creates temporary stability point in spacetime. Useful against entities attempting phase shifting or dimensional manipulation. Like a portable version of that spire we found, Ben realized. This could be useful against monarch forces. They continued through the repository, collecting tools and devices that might aid their return mission. Vex provided brief explanations for each, though many functions were complex enough that Ben suspected they'd be learning through trial and error. As they prepared, Ben felt the Omnitrix pulse with increasing frequency, as if the device itself was anticipating the coming confrontation. When he mentioned this to Vex, the insectoid studied the Omnitrix with renewed interest. Final integration stage initiating. Nexus proximity accelerating process. Vex's compound eyes gleamed with what might have been excitement. Recommend transformation sequence to facilitate. You want me to cycle through my aliens? Here. Safe environment for calibration. Maximize adaptation before combat situation. It made sense. Ben activated the Omnitrix, cycling through his roster before selecting Diamond Head. The transformation felt smoother than ever, energy flowing effortlessly as his body reconfigured into the crystalline Petrosapien form. The changes were immediately apparent. The usual blue mana patterns that had developed in the hunter world now formed more complex geometric designs throughout his crystal body, pulsing with power that felt more controlled, more integrated than before. Whoa, Ben examined his hands, which could generate crystal formations with merely a thought now, requiring far less conscious effort than before. This feels different. Stronger. Integration progressing optimally. Vex monitored readings on a device attached to its forearm. Continue sequence. Ben cycled through several more transformations, Heat Blast, XLR8, Big Chill, Forearms, each showing similar enhancements. The mana integration had evolved from simple energy patterns to fundamental changes in how each form functioned, creating hybrid abilities that combined alien biology with the hunter world's magical system. When he finally returned to human form, even his baseline body felt different, stronger, more attuned to the energies flowing through the nexus. Adaptation complete, Vex announced with satisfaction. Omnitrix fully integrated with hunter system energies while maintaining dimensional lock functions. Optimal configuration achieved. Just in time, Hayan noted, checking the chronometer on her wrist. 3 hours until departure. They spent the remaining time reviewing everything they'd learned about the monarchs, the dimensional barriers, and the Omnitrix's hidden functions. Vex provided what tactical information it could, though much of the insectoid's knowledge was theoretical rather than practical. Monarchs cannot fully manifest in dimension without sufficient barrier degradation, it explained. Use avatars, proxies, influenced servants instead. Director Park primary conduit for Shadow Monarch influence. So if we stop Park and seal the gates, we cut off their access, Ben summarized. Temporary solution only if Park remains. Shadow Monarch connection established in his mind. Will rebuild influence over time unless permanently severed. Hayan's expression hardened. Severed how? Vex's answer was clinically precise. Termination most effective. Alternatively, specialized dimensional binding artifact could contain connection. I don't kill, Ben said firmly. Not even someone like Park. We find another way. Hayan didn't argue, but her expression suggested she'd make a different choice if necessary. It was one of the fundamental differences between them, lines they would or wouldn't cross in pursuit of their goals. As the departure time approached, the other dimensional refugees gathered to see them off. Many had chosen to remain at the Nexus, finding safety there after their captivity. Others had already departed to their home dimensions through gates Vex had helped establish. The insectoid led them to a platform that had configured itself into what appeared to be a launch area, energies already swirling to form a dimensional pathway. Coordinates locked on Seoul Central Park, as requested. Vex made a formal gesture that the translator interpreted as honor and respect. Nexus remains accessible to keybearer if return needed. Sanctuary offered. Thank you, Vex. Ben extended his hand, which the insectoid grasped in its own claw-like appendage. For everything you've taught us. We'll do our best to stop the monarchs from breaching the barriers further. Success critical for all dimensions. Vex turned to Hayan. Hunter female possesses warrior spirit reminiscent of Nexus guardians. Would have been honored among my ancestors. Hayan bowed slightly, accepting the compliment with grace. I fight to protect my world. Nothing more honorable than that. As final preparations completed, the swirling energies coalesced into a stable gate, far more controlled than the chaotic tiers they'd encountered before. This was dimensional travel as it was meant to be, precise, contained, directed. Gate stability optimal. Transit safety at maximum parameters. Vex stepped back from the platform. May path remain clear between worlds, keybearer. Ben and Hayan stood side by side before the dimensional portal, equipment secured and resolve strengthened. Whatever awaited them in Seoul, Association forces, monarch servants, or worse, they were as prepared as they could be. Ready? Ben asked, offering his hand to Hayan. She took it without hesitation this time. Let's save a world, Tennyson. Together, they stepped through the gate, leaving the safety of the Nexus behind for the battle that awaited. The transition back to the Hunter dimension was smoother than their journey to the Nexus, a controlled descent rather than a chaotic plunge. They emerged in Seoul's Central Park under a cloudy night sky, the cityscape around them gleaming with artificial light that seemed harsh after the cosmic illumination of the Nexus. The gate closed behind them with a soft pulse of energy rather than the violent collapse typical of the Hunter world's unstable tiers. No trace remained to indicate interdimensional travel had occurred. Different from our usual gates, Hayan noted, immediately scanning their surroundings for threats. No residual energy signature for the association to track. Ben checked the omnitrix, which pulsed with steady green light. Vex said they'd be monitoring dimensional pathways. How long before they realize we're back? Not long. We should move quickly. She tapped her communicator. Let me see if I can reach Young-hoon for an update on the situation. While Hayan attempted communication, Ben expanded his own senses, something he'd been practicing during their time at the Nexus. The Omnitrix's integration with the Hunter system had enhanced his baseline human form, allowing him limited perception of mana flows even without transformation. What he sensed made his skin crawl. The ambient mana of Seoul felt wrong. Corrupted somehow, with dark currents flowing beneath the normal energy patterns of the city. Something's different, he murmured. The energy signature of the city has changed since we left. Hayan looked up from her communicator, frowning. Young-hoon isn't responding. And Hunter channels are unusually quiet, no gate alerts, no mission broadcasts. How long were we gone in this world's time? Hard to say with dimensional travel, but... She checked her Hunter ID, which synchronized with association systems automatically. 3 days according to the network timestamp. That can't be right. Why not? Because there's always gate activity. Every day, every hour. The system should be flooded with alerts and clearance reports. Her expression grew concerned. It's like the entire hunter network has gone silent. A soft sound behind them made them both whirl, Hayan's enhanced gauntlets charging with energy as her hands dropped to her weapons. From the shadows of a nearby stand of trees emerged a figure they recognized, Jin Woo, moving with his characteristic silent grace. You returned. His voice was neutral, but Ben detected tension beneath the calm exterior. Earlier than expected. The timeline accelerated, Ben explained. We learned the monarchs were increasing activity here. Jin Woo nodded once, his sharp eyes taking in the new equipment and Ben's subtly altered stance. You found answers. And more questions, Hayan replied. What's happening here? The hunter network is silent. The association has implemented emergency protocols. All hunters recalled to headquarters or regional centers. Jin Woo's expression darkened slightly. Director Park announced the discovery of dimensional terrorists working to undermine gate security. Let me guess, Ben said dryly. Us. Your images are being broadcast nationwide. Rewards offered for information. Shoot on-site orders for association security forces. Jin Woo's gaze fixed on the Omnitrix. They're especially interested in your device. We know why, Hayan said. The gates aren't natural phenomena, they're artificial tiers created by entities called monarchs. They're using them to weaken dimensional barriers for invasion. And Park is working for them, Ben added. Specifically for something called the Shadow Monarch. Jin Woo went very still, a subtle shift in the shadows around him the only indication of his reaction. You're certain of this? We have it from multiple sources, including dimensional refugees who've witnessed the process directly. Hayan studied Jin Woo's reaction carefully. You don't seem surprised. I've suspected the association's corruption for some time. The nature of that corruption, however. His eyes narrowed slightly. The Shadow Monarch is not to be underestimated. You know about them, Ben realized. That's why you helped us at the mall, why you arranged security reductions during our break-in. You've been fighting them too, in your own way. Jin Woo didn't confirm or deny this directly. Instead, he gestured for them to follow him deeper into the park, away from potential surveillance. 3 days ago, something changed, he explained as they walked. Gates stopped appearing naturally. Instead, the association began controlled gate experiments at designated sites around the city. Each experiment lasted exactly 1 hour before the gate was successfully closed. Controlled breaches, Hayan understood immediately. They're not even pretending anymore. They don't need to. With you two labeled as terrorists, any opposition to their actions is painted as support for enemies of the state. Jin Woo led them to what appeared to be a maintenance shed, but when he pressed his hand against the door, shadows enveloped it briefly before it opened to reveal a concealed entrance. My guild has established safe locations throughout the city. This will serve as temporary headquarters. The space beyond was far larger than the exterior suggested, an underground facility equipped with communication systems, weapons, and monitoring stations where several hunters worked at various tasks. They looked up as the trio entered, expressions ranging from curiosity to suspicion. These are the dimensional travelers, asked a young woman with short silver hair, her tone skeptical. Yes, Jin Woo confirmed. Han-mi, bring up the latest association broadcasts. She activated a large display showing news footage of what appeared to be a controlled gate opening ceremony. Association officials, including Director Park, stood on a platform before a shimmering tear in reality that looked different from normal gates, darker, with purple energy signatures rather than the usual blue. Their 6th experiment in 3 days, Jin Woo explained. Each one lasting precisely 60 minutes, each one growing slightly larger than the last. Ben studied the footage, focusing on Park. The director looked triumphant but also, changed. His eyes seemed darker, his movements subtly wrong, as if something else was partially controlling his body. He's further gone than before, Ben noted. The Shadow Monarch's influence is growing stronger. That's not all that's changed, Hayan said, pointing to readings displayed on monitors around the facility. Mana concentrations citywide have shifted. The ambient energy is becoming corrupted. Jinwoo nodded grimly. Hunter abilities are being affected. Some report their powers functioning erratically or painfully. Others find them enhanced but harder to control. The association claims it's a natural evolution of the gate system. Its preparation, Ben realized. They're changing the dimensional energy signature to make it more compatible with whatever is trying to come through. Jinwoo turned to face them directly. You said your device can seal the gates permanently. Is this true? Ben raised his wrist, showing the Omnitrix. According to what we learned at the Nexus, yes. It contains dimensional lock codes that can repair the barriers between worlds. The monarchs have been hunting for it specifically because it threatens their invasion plans. Then we need to act quickly. Jinwoo gestured to a tactical display showing a map of Seoul. The association has announced their largest, controlled experiment for tomorrow at noon. A public demonstration at Olympic Stadium of humanity's mastery over the gate system. A trap, Hayan said immediately. They're expecting us to show up. Undoubtedly. But also an opportunity. Jinwoo highlighted the stadium on the map. If your device can truly seal dimensional tiers, there would be no better moment to demonstrate it than during their grandest display of power. With thousands of witnesses, Ben nodded, understanding the strategy. Making it impossible for them to cover up what really happens. Exactly. But reaching the gate itself will be nearly impossible. The stadium will be surrounded by association security, and Park will undoubtedly have special measures in place specifically to counter your abilities. We'll need a distraction, Hayan suggested. Something big enough to divide their forces. Already arranged. Jinwoo's mouth curved in a rare smile. My guild isn't the only one questioning the association's recent activities. Several independent hunter organizations have agreed to stage incidents around the city simultaneously with the demonstration. Ben felt a surge of hope. So we're not alone in this. Far from it. Many hunters recognize something is wrong, even if they don't understand the full scope of the threat. Jinwoo turned to a young man operating a communication station. Ju-hee, show them the association's most recent security bulletin. The screen changed to display an internal association document listing enhanced security protocols for the stadium demonstration. Among the specialized countermeasures was a section specifically labeled Metamorph Containment Procedures, with detailed information about each of Ben's alien forms observed so far and recommended tactics for neutralizing them. They've been studying you carefully, Jinwoo noted. Every transformation, every ability, documented and analyzed for weaknesses. Good thing I've got a few they haven't seen yet, Ben replied with confidence that wasn't entirely forced. And they don't know about the Nexus upgrades. Hayan was examining the security layout with a tactician's eye. Even with distractions drawing away some forces, breaking through this cordon will be extremely difficult. We'll need precision timing and multiple phases of approach. And we'll need to account for Park himself, Ben added. If he's becoming a direct conduit for the Shadow Monarch, he'll be more dangerous than any security system. For the next several hours, they worked with Jinwoo's team to develop a comprehensive infiltration plan. The S-rank hunter proved to be a meticulous strategist, considering contingencies and alternatives for every phase of the operation. His knowledge of association protocols and weaknesses was invaluable, as was the intelligence his guild had gathered on the stadium's security systems. As the planning session extended into early morning, Ben found himself impressed not just with Jinwoo's tactical mind but with his underlying motivation. The powerful hunter clearly cared deeply about protecting his world, even when that meant opposing the very institutions established for that purpose. You've been fighting the Shadow Monarch's influence for some time, haven't you? Ben asked during a brief break, when they found themselves momentarily alone. Jinwoo considered him with that penetrating gaze that seemed to see more than it should. Let's say I understand their nature better than most. The monarchs aren't simply invaders, they're consumers. They don't wish to rule our world but to devour it completely. You have some connection to them, Ben pressed, remembering the cold, vast presence he'd sensed during their communication from the nexus. To the shadow monarch specifically. A long silence stretched between them before Jinwoo finally spoke, his voice low. I carry power that once belonged to their kind. Power I took rather than accepted as a gift. His shadows shifted subtly around him, more responsive than normal darkness. It gives me insight into their methods and some ability to counter their influence. Is that why you helped us from the beginning? You sensed something in the Omnitrix? I sensed a potential ally against an enemy few understand. Jinwoo's expression remained impassive, but there was a hint of respect in his tone. Your choices since arriving have confirmed that initial impression. Before they could continue the conversation, Hayan approached with updated security information that had just been intercepted from association channels. They're moving the demonstration forward, she reported tersely. New start time is 0900 hours, less than 3 hours from now. They must suspect we're planning something. Jinwoo nodded, unsurprised. Accelerate our timeline. Alert the diversionary teams. He turned to Ben. Are you ready for this? Once we begin, there's no turning back. Ben looked down at the Omnitrix, feeling its steady pulse against his wrist. In the short time he'd been in this dimension, he'd gone from confused visitor to central figure in a battle for an entire world's survival. It wasn't the first time he'd found himself in such a position, but the stakes felt more personal somehow. I'm ready, he confirmed. Let's end this. Olympic Stadium loomed against the morning sky, its massive structure now ringed with association security forces and specialized equipment. What should have been a sports venue had been transformed into a fortress, with checkpoints at every entrance and aerial surveillance drones patrolling the perimeter. At the center of the stadium, visible even from their observation position several blocks away, a controlled dimensional tear hovered above a specially constructed platform. Unlike natural gates, this one pulsed with dark purple energy that occasionally shot tendrils outward like living lightning. That's not just a gate, Ben observed through high-powered binoculars. It's a direct channel to whatever's on the other side. And it's growing, Hayan added, checking sensor readings on a device Jung-hoon had provided once they'd re-established contact. Energy signatures are off the charts, at least twice as powerful as an S-rank gate. Jinwoo studied the scene with narrowed eyes, the shadows around him responding to his tension by growing darker and more substantial. The diversion begins in 20 minutes. That's our window to approach the southeastern maintenance entrance. Their plan was multi-layered. Simultaneous hunter incidents across Seoul would draw association response teams away from the stadium, while Jinwoo's guild members created a secondary distraction at the main entrance. Meanwhile, Ben, Hayan, and Jinwoo himself would infiltrate through service tunnels identified as having minimal security coverage. Remember, Jinwoo continued, our priority is reaching the gate itself. Confrontation with Park is secondary unless unavoidable. And if it is unavoidable? Hayan asked, checking her weapons one final time. Then we deal with him permanently. Jinwoo's tone left no room for debate. If he truly serves as a conduit for the Shadow Monarch, allowing him to continue is not an option. Ben frowned but didn't argue. The difference in their approaches to threats was clear, but this wasn't the time to debate ethics. Let's focus on reaching the gate. One problem at a time. Their communicators chimed simultaneously, the signal that the diversionary operations had begun. Reports immediately flooded emergency channels of hunter confrontations at multiple locations across the city, each one requiring association response teams. It's working, Hayan confirmed, monitoring the tactical feed. Security forces are being redirected from the stadium perimeter. Coverage dropping to approximately 65% of optimal. Still heavy odds, Ben noted. But better than facing their full force. They moved quickly through side streets toward the stadium, timing their approach to coincide with predicted security patterns. Ben had transformed into Ghost Freak, his ectoneurite form enhanced with blue mana patterns that allowed him to extend his invisibility to Hayan and Jinwoo while they moved. The southeastern maintenance entrance was as predicted, guarded but not heavily, with standard security measures rather than the specialized equipment deployed at main access points. Jinwoo's shadows moved ahead of them, silent scouts that reported back through his unique connection to them. 2 guards at the door, he whispered. For more inside the checkpoint. Automated scanning system active. Hayan nodded, activating her gauntlets which hummed softly with energy. I'll take the outside pair. You handle the checkpoint. Ben maintains our concealment until we're through. The coordination between Hayan and Jinwoo was impressive, 2 hunters who had barely worked together moving with the synchronized precision of longtime partners. Hayan struck first, her enhanced gauntlets allowing her to neutralize the external guards with minimal noise. Jinwoo's shadows flowed through the opening door, engulfing the checkpoint guards before they could react. Ben maintained Ghost Freak's invisibility field as they passed through, suppressing the automated scanning system by phasing partially into its control mechanism, a trick he'd perfected during their planning sessions. Once inside, they navigated service corridors according to memorized routes, avoiding patrols and camera coverage. The stadium hummed with activity around them, association personnel preparing for the demonstration, security teams establishing positions, and the distinctive energy signature of the artificial gate growing stronger with every passing minute. Energy levels rising faster than projected, Hayan reported, checking their monitoring device. They're accelerating the process. Whatever's coming through, it's happening soon. They reached a maintenance access point that would allow them to emerge near the stadium floor where the gate platform had been constructed. Jinwoo peered through his shadow scouts, assessing the situation beyond. Heavy security around the platform itself. Park is present, along with what appears to be a specialized research team. His expression darkened. Something is wrong with Park. His energy signature is corrupted. Ben reverted to human form, conserving the Omnitrix's power for what was to come. The Shadow Monarch's influence growing stronger. We need to move now, before whatever they're planning completes. Secondary diversion activating in 30 seconds, Hayan confirmed, watching the synchronized timer on their communicators. That's our window. On cue, explosions echoed from the far side of the stadium, harmless but impressive pyrotechnics deployed by Jinwoo's guild members to create panic and confusion. Security alarms blared as forces redirected to investigate the apparent attack. Now! Jinwoo commanded, pushing open the access door. They emerged onto the stadium floor amid chaos, personnel running toward the disturbance, others shouting contradictory orders, security teams forming defensive positions facing the wrong direction. The central platform with its pulsing gate stood momentarily less guarded, though Park remained beside it, strangely calm amid the disorder. Ben activated the Omnitrix, cycling to a form he'd been saving, Clockwork. The Chronosapiens' time manipulation abilities, enhanced by the Nexus upgrades, would be crucial for reaching the gate before opposition could organize. The transformation completed with a flash of green light, drawing immediate attention. Clockwork's golden mechanical body, now traced with intricate blue mana patterns, gleamed in the morning light. Intruders, someone shouted. The shapeshifter is here. Park turned toward them, his movement unnaturally fluid. When he spoke, his voice carried harmonics that weren't human. Tennyson. Right on schedule. His eyes had changed, darkness swirling where whites should be. You've brought the key directly to us. How considerate. Ben activated Clockwork's time powers, creating a bubble of accelerated movement around their team. To the outside world, they would appear to move at incredible speed while everything else slowed to a crawl. We need to reach that gate now, he said, his voice carrying the mechanical timbre of Clockwork's form. Park is further gone than we thought. They surged forward, moving through the time differential toward the central platform. Security forces appeared frozen in their responses, weapons raised but unable to track targets moving at such accelerated speed. They were halfway to the platform when Ben felt resistance against his time field, a countering force emanating from Park himself. The director smiled, stepping forward at normal speed despite the time dilation affecting everything else. The Shadow Monarch exists beyond conventional time, Keybearer, Park said, his voice eerily calm. Your parlor tricks are meaningless against entities that predate your universe's formation. Jin Woo moved forward, shadows coalescing around him into spear-like projections. Go for the gate, he instructed Ben and Hayan. I'll handle Park. You. Park laughed, the sound distorted and multi-layered. A thief wielding stolen fragments of power against its true master. Your arrogance is amusing, Hunter. Jin Woo attacked without further words, shadows lashing out with devastating speed. Park countered with his own darkness, deeper, more ancient, flowing from him like living ink. The two shadow wielders clashed in a battle that defied conventional physics, darkness fighting darkness for supremacy. Ben and Hayan used the confrontation as cover to advance toward the gate platform. The time field was weakening, security forces beginning to move in slow motion rather than standing frozen. They would have seconds at most before the full force of association security descended upon them. Almost there, Hayan encouraged, her enhanced gauntlets deflecting the first shots from guards breaking through the time dilation effect. Whatever you're going to do, be ready. They reached the platform just as Ben's clockwork form timed out, returning him to human. The artificial gate loomed above them, its purple energy corona now expanded to nearly twice its original size. Through the dimensional tear, Ben caught glimpses of something vast and dark, pressing against the boundaries between worlds. It's coming through, he realized with horror. The Shadow Monarch itself. Hayan took up a defensive position, her back to Ben as she engaged the security forces now converging on their position. Do it now. Seal the gate. Ben activated the Omnitrix again, but instead of selecting a transformation, he accessed the interface directly, reaching for the hidden functions Vex had described. The device responded differently than usual, its holographic display showing complex patterns and codes rather than the standard transformation roster. Come on, he muttered, searching for the right sequence. Show me how to lock it down. Behind him, the battle between Jin Woo and Park had intensified, reality itself seeming to warp around their confrontation. Park's humanity was slipping further away with each passing moment, his form occasionally flickering to reveal something else beneath, a towering entity of pure shadow with countless eyes and reaching tendrils. Ben! Hayan called urgently, fighting off 3 security officers simultaneously. Whatever you're going to do it now. The Omnitrix pulsed strongly against his wrist, as if responding to his desperation. Suddenly, it projected a new interface, a 3-dimensional map of interconnected points that Ben recognized as a dimensional coordinate system similar to what Vex had shown them. That's it, he breathed, understanding flowing through him. The Omnitrix wasn't just showing him how to seal the gate, it was guiding him, the knowledge integrating directly with his consciousness. He raised his arm toward the artificial gate, the Omnitrix projecting a beam of intense green energy that connected with the dimensional tear. The purple energy corona reacted violently, discharges lashing outward as the two forces contested for dominance. Park screamed, a sound of rage and desperation that transcended human vocal capabilities. No. The convergence is at hand. The barriers will fall. He broke away from his battle with Jin Woo, launching himself toward Ben with inhuman speed. Hayan intercepted him, her enhanced gauntlets connecting with his chest in a devastating impact that would have incapacitated any normal human. Park barely slowed, throwing her aside with terrible strength. Jin Woo's shadows ensnared Park from behind, thousands of black tendrils binding his limbs and torso. Finish it, Tennyson. The seal. Ben maintained his focus on the gate, feeling the Omnitrix drawing on his own energy now as it fought against the dimensional tear. The device heated against his skin, almost painfully intense as the connection strengthened. Through the gate, he could see it clearly now, the shadow monarch in its true form, a vast cosmic entity of living darkness pushing against the thinning barrier between dimensions. Its presence was a palpable weight, ancient and cold and hungry for a world's worth of energy. You cannot stop what has already begun. Park's voice had changed completely now, the shadow monarch speaking directly through its human vessel. The key will be ours. All dimensions will be consumed. It is inevitable. Nothing's inevitable, Ben countered, channeling more of his own energy into the Omnitrix. The device responded, its beam intensifying. I've been stopping inevitable invasions since I was a kid. You're just another power-hungry alien who doesn't know when to quit. The connection between the Omnitrix and the gate stabilized, green energy beginning to overpower the purple. The dimensional coordinates locked into place as the device initiated its true purpose, restoring proper barriers between realities. Park, or what remained of him, broke free from Jin Woo's shadow bindings with a surge of power that knocked the S-rank hunter backward. He lunged for Ben, hands transformed into shadow claws capable of rending flesh from bone. You will not deny us. The shadow monarch roared through its vessel. This world is ours to consume. Hayan appeared suddenly between them, intercepting Park with a combination of hunter speed and sheer determination. Her gauntlets glowed white-hot with channeled mana as she struck with everything she had. Not our world, she ground out between blows. Not today. Not ever. The impact of her enhanced strike sent Park staggering backward, momentarily stunned. It gave Ben the seconds he needed to complete the sealing process, the Omnitrix's energy beam now fully enveloping the artificial gate. The dimensional tear began to close, its purple corona collapsing inward as proper barriers reasserted themselves. Through the shrinking portal, the shadow monarch raged, its vast form thrashing against the renewed dimensional wall. It's working. Hayan called, maintaining her defensive position between Ben and Park. The director had fallen to his knees, body convulsing as the shadow monarch fought to maintain its connection to the human world. Darkness poured from his eyes, mouth, and ears, the entity's influence being forcibly extracted as the gate sealed. Jin Woo approached cautiously, his own shadows ready to strike if necessary. The connection is breaking. The monarch is losing its hold. With a final surge of energy from the Omnitrix, the gate collapsed completely, not just closing but sealing on a fundamental level that would prevent reopening. The backlash of energy knocked everyone backward, a shockwave of green light expanding outward from the point where the dimensional tear had been. Where Park had knelt, only an empty husk remained, a human body abandoned by the entity that had been controlling it. Jin Woo approached cautiously, checking for signs of life. Dead, he confirmed without emotion. The Shadow Monarch's departure was not gentle. Ben lowered his arm, the Omnitrix cooling against his skin as its energy output normalized. The device had changed again, the familiar hourglass symbol now incorporating subtle elements of the Hunter world's mana patterns in its design. Is it over? Hayan asked, joining him at the platform's edge. Did we seal all the gates? No, Ben shook his head. Just this one. But the Omnitrix knows what to do now. I can feel it, the dimensional lock codes are fully integrated. We can seal the others the same way. Around them, Association security forces had regrouped but were holding position, uncertain how to proceed after witnessing the confrontation's supernatural nature. The death of Director Park and the disappearance of the artificial gate had created a power vacuum no one seemed eager to fill. Jin Woo surveyed the situation with tactical precision. We should leave while they're disorganized. There will be consequences to what happened here today, political fallout within the association and beyond. What about the other gates? Hayan asked as they made their way toward an exit, opposition melting away before Jin Woo's intimidating presence. The ones the association has been opening as experiments. We hunt them down and seal them, one by one, Ben said with determination. Now that the Omnitrix understands its sealing function, we can prevent the monarchs from trying this again. They escaped the stadium through the same service tunnels they'd used for entry, emerging into a city transformed by the morning's events. News of the confrontation was already spreading through hunter channels and civilian networks, confused reports of dimensional anomalies, association corruption, and the death of Director Park. Jin Woo led them to a secure location, another of his guild's safe houses where they could regroup and plan their next steps. The facility was bustling with activity, hunters from various independent organizations sharing information and coordinating responses to the day's unprecedented events. "The association is in disarray," reported one of Jin Woo's lieutenants. "With Park gone and evidence of corruption emerging, leadership is fragmented. Some branches are already declaring independence from central control. A power vacuum is dangerous," Jin Woo noted. "It creates opportunities for remaining monarch agents to consolidate influence. We need to establish a counternarrative quickly," Hayan suggested. "Get the truth about the gates and the monarchs to hunters who can understand the threat." Ben had been quiet, examining the Omnitrix and processing everything that had happened. The confrontation at the stadium had confirmed what Vex had told them. The gates were artificial tiers created by the monarchs, with Park serving as their primary agent in this world. But something still bothered him. "Why me specifically?" he finally asked. "Vex said I was targeted after bonding with the Omnitrix, but why wait years to pull me into this dimension? Why now?" Jin Woo considered this. Perhaps the barriers had to weaken to a certain point before cross-dimensional extraction became possible. Or perhaps something changed in your world that made you vulnerable. Ben thought back to the night he'd been pulled through, a routine patrol, nothing special about it except. I was alone, he realized. For the first time in weeks, I was handling a situation without backup. My cousin Gwen and Kevin had just left for a semester abroad. I was the only active hero in the area. They waited until you were isolated, Hayan concluded. Strategic patience. Very much how the Shadow Monarch would operate, according to the myths. Which means they've been watching you, your world, for some time. Jin Woo's expression was grave. And may continue to do so. The monarchs are patient entities. This defeat will not deter them permanently. The implications were troubling. Not just for this world but for Ben's home dimension as well. If the monarchs could reach across realities to target him specifically, what else might they be capable of? We need to find and seal all the gates they've created, Ben decided. Not just here but potentially in other dimensions as well. The Omnitrix is the only thing that can permanently repair the dimensional barriers. An enormous task, Jin Woo noted. Perhaps impossible for one person. I'm not alone though, am I? Ben looked between Hayan and Jin Woo. We make a pretty good team. A dimension-hopping alien hero, Korea's top hunter, and the most stubborn woman I've ever met. Hayan raised an eyebrow at the description but didn't dispute it. Instead, her expression turned thoughtful. What about your home dimension? Don't you want to return? It was the question Ben had been avoiding since their time at the Nexus. Now, faced with the reality of their success and the challenges still ahead, he could no longer postpone the decision. I do want to go back eventually, he admitted. My family, my friends, they matter to me. But right now, this world needs the Omnitrix more. The monarchs targeted this dimension specifically for its mana resources. The threat here is immediate. And there's no saying you can't return later, Jin Woo pointed out. With the Omnitrix's dimensional capabilities awakened, creating a controlled pathway might be possible once the immediate crisis is resolved. Hayan's expression remained carefully neutral, but Ben caught a flicker of what might have been relief in her eyes. So you're staying? For now. For now, Ben confirmed, then smiled slightly. Besides, I've barely scratched the surface of Korean cuisine. Still haven't tried authentic bibimbap. That earned a small laugh from Hayan, a rare sound that Ben had come to treasure. Your priorities are ridiculous, Tennyson. But charming, he countered. Jin Woo cleared his throat, interrupting their moment with practiced timing. If you're staying, we should establish a formal alliance. My guild can provide resources, intelligence, and operational support for locating and sealing remaining gates. And dealing with whatever association remnants might still be loyal to the monarch's agenda, Hayan added, returning to tactical considerations. As they began outlining plans for the days ahead, Ben felt the omnitrix pulse against his wrist, a steady, reassuring rhythm that suggested rightness in his decision to stay. This world had changed him, integrating its energies with his own abilities in ways that made him stronger, more connected to the flow of power around him. Whatever challenges lay ahead, sealing gates, confronting potential monarch servants, navigating the political aftermath of the association's corruption, he would face them with allies who had become something more. Friends. Partners. And in Hayan's case, potentially something else, if her subtle glances and gradually softening demeanor were any indication. First priority should be establishing a detection system for remaining gates, Jin Woo was saying, bringing Ben's attention back to the planning session. Especially those with similar energy signatures to the one at the stadium. I can help with that, Ben offered. The Omnitrix seems to resonate with gates now that its sealing function is active. Almost like it can sense them at a distance. That would give us a significant advantage, Hayan noted. Mobile detection independent of association systems. As they continued strategizing, reports came in from across the city, hunter groups securing association facilities, information networks being established between previously independent guilds, a new coalition forming in the power vacuum left by Park's death and the revealed corruption. It was chaotic but promising, hunters taking responsibility for their world's protection rather than relying on a centralized authority that had betrayed their trust. Jin Woo moved among them like a natural leader, his quiet authority and unmatched power commanding respect without demanding it. By evening, the immediate crisis had stabilized. No new gates had appeared since the confrontation at the stadium, and preliminary scans suggested the ambient mana of Seoul was gradually returning to its normal patterns, the corruption receding as the Shadow Monarch's influence faded. Ben found himself on the rooftop of the safe house, watching the city lights come alive as darkness fell. The Omnitrix pulsed gently against his wrist, synchronized with his heartbeat in a way that felt more natural than ever before. He sensed Hayan's approach before he heard her, another new ability from the Omnitrix's integration with this world's energy system. Her mana signature had become as familiar to him as his own. Jin Woo's contacts have secured us permanent accommodations, she said, joining him at the railing. A building in Gangnam previously used as a hunter training center. Private, secure, and off association records. Fancy neighborhood, Ben noted with a smile. Moving up in the world. Better than my cramped apartment or safe houses with questionable plumbing. She leaned against the railing beside him, their shoulders almost touching. Young-hoon is beside himself with excitement about studying your dimensional sealing capabilities. I think he's already planning a research paper. As long as it doesn't involve dissection, I'm fine with it. They stood in comfortable silence for a moment, watching the city below, a world that had nearly faced consumption by entities from beyond its reality, saved by an unlikely alliance of heroes from different dimensions. Thank you, Hayan said suddenly, her voice softer than usual. For staying. You could have used the Omnitrix to find a way home immediately. No one would have blamed you. Ben turned to face her. I don't abandon worlds that need help. Or people I've come to care about. Their eyes met, and for once, Hayan didn't look away or mask her expression with professional detachment. Is that what I am? Someone you care about? You know you are. Ben stepped closer, the distance between them narrowing. You've been helping me survive in this world since that first night. Fighting beside me. Trusting me when you didn't need to. Tactical necessity, she murmured, but without conviction. Right. Purely practical. Ben smiled, echoing their conversation from the nexus. Nothing to do with growing to care about the dimension-hopping alien with the universe's most powerful watch. Hayan's usual defenses had fallen away, leaving something vulnerable and genuine in her expression. Maybe not entirely practical. The moment stretched between them, filled with possibilities. Ben leaned forward slightly, giving her every opportunity to step back if she wanted to. Instead, Hayan closed the remaining distance herself, her lips meeting his with surprising gentleness from someone so fierce in battle. The kiss was brief but perfect, a connection that felt as natural as the mana flowing around them. When they separated, Hayan's usual composure had returned, but with a softness around the eyes that hadn't been there before. "Don't get too comfortable, Tennyson," she warned, though the effect was somewhat undermined by the slight curve of her lips. "We have gates to seal and monarch agents to hunt. Romance is a secondary objective at best." "Always the tactician," Ben laughed. "But I notice you didn't say it's off the table entirely." "Strategic ambiguity," she replied with the hint of a smile. "Keeps you motivated." Below them, the city continued its evening rhythm, citizens largely unaware of how close they'd come to cosmic horror. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, more gates to seal, political battles as the hunter community reorganized, potential monarch agents still hiding within power structures. But for now, standing beside Hayan with the weight of the Omnitrix comfortable and familiar on his wrist, Ben felt something he hadn't expected to find in this strange dimension: purpose. Not just the heroic drive that had always defined him, but a specific role that only he could fill. A world that needed exactly what he could offer. The universe had a way of putting people exactly where they needed to be, even when it seemed like random chance or enemy action. Perhaps his arrival in the hunter world hadn't been entirely the monarch's design but something deeper, a cosmic balance seeking to right itself through the unexpected convergence of heroes from different realities. As if agreeing with this thought, the Omnitrix pulsed with steady green light, stronger and more integrated with this world's energy than ever before. Whatever challenges tomorrow brought, Ben Tennyson, hero of 2 dimensions now, would be ready to face them. Not alone, but with allies who had become something more. A team. Maybe even a family, of sorts. Different from what he'd left behind, but valuable in its own right. "So," Hayan said, breaking into his thoughts. "Ready to save another world, hero?" Ben smiled, the familiar weight of responsibility settling comfortably on his shoulders. "Always." The end. Thank you for watching this video. Please be sure to subscribe to our channel and like this video.